All right, so I'm now live, I guess. It's gonna be fun. I'm waiting for a student. Oh, we got somebody already here. What the heck? How's it going, Tori and John? I'm actually a little early. Hi, Moxo. Welcome. This is the first time I've ever done any live. I'm actually going to be setting up things to do some training. I keep going. They're live. Okay, I don't have a clue how to make this kind of happen. Day of duos, add daily ranking. Oh, what is this? I'll share it with you. So, all right. I'm a little early. I'm not sure. I'm pretty much waiting for a student. The biggest thing is that I'm trying to test my equipment. So I'm trying to see what's going on. Let's see. The world needs helicopter pilots. Let's see. Oh, it needs to be reversed. So let me see if I can reverse this. Mirror the video. There we go. So the world needs helicopters. There you go. All right. All right. So, okay. That's interesting. It's all going to be sideways of everything, but at least I can show certain things. What's going on? All right. Hey, how's it going? I can't say your name. It's Lei Ganghe or whatever. I apologize. Hey, Jim. This is the first time I've gone live. I'm actually trying to do some lessons on helicopters. This is a test to see if my equipment's working. I got a new setup, essentially. I've got a microphone, so can you hear me okay? The goal that I have is to teach free lessons on how helicopters work. I've been a helicopter pilot for 20 years. I've been a flight instructor for 20 years. Hey, Amor. I've been teaching people how to fly helicopters for 20 years, so I've learned quite a bit of stuff on helicopters. So, do you have any questions? Oh, I sound good? Thank you, I appreciate that. Do you have any questions about helicopters in general? Have you ever flown a helicopter before, Jim? Do you have any questions on that? Hey, Digital. So, the goal is, again, I've been a flight instructor, and the world needs some helicopter pilots. If you didn't know that helicopters essentially are a little bit like vacuum cleaners, we suck ourselves up into the sky and then we kind of point the hose where we want to go. When it comes to a helicopter, we can land anywhere we want. Because of the way a helicopter works, basically we can take patients, we can go to the hospital with them, we can land at the beach, we can go to places that are pretty fun. So generally speaking, helicopters can do quite a variety of things that airplanes can't. Generally speaking, the goal of my feed is to try to create some more helicopter pilots. We're running out of helicopter pilots. The things that the helicopter pilots industry do are pretty valuable. They do crop dusting, where they essentially clear fields of bugs. So your vegetables essentially come without any problems. And then they also do medical flying. We do long lines where it does like construction kind of work. So we're running out of helicopter pilots. So my goal is to teach people how to fly helicopters. Hey, Ridiculous. Hey, Abigail. Hey, John. I'm waiting for a student that's going to come in. He is an 18-year-old kid. He's going to basically learn how to fly. I found out this is probably the easiest way for him to get through the lessons. My goal is to make the flight ground completely free. So that way, when people are essentially, hey, Kaylee, it's good to meet you, and Taylor. What I'm trying to do in this feed is essentially, I'm going to start going through some actual lessons. They may be boring, but the lessons themselves can cost quite a bit of money. I spent about $130,000 to learn how to fly. And so I'm going to try to save some people money by teaching the actual ground school. I've been a flight instructor for 20 years. And so my goal is to great thing. I don't have any retention at all. It's kind of funny. I think you're the only person who's been on there. I'm pretty new to TikTok, so whatever feedback you can give me is going to be kind of helpful. Let me know if there is something that you're specifically want to talk about even. Right now I'm just kind of testing the equipment. I was pretty much telling everybody I was going to be on at 6 p.m. I may have more people who are actually interested in helicopters, generally speaking, so I don't know. Hey, D. Johnson, thanks for coming by. What is everybody doing tonight? I know it's Sunday. This is probably not the type of thing that most people are trying to get into and stuff. Hey, Lucy, it's good to meet you. Thanks for coming by. What's everybody doing though? Is anything fun? Is there something better? Football. It's good, Jim. All right, thanks. What kind of football are you looking at? Is it American football or is it basically the European kind of soccer? Hey, Soul. It's good to meet you. So what do you think? What, Jim? What do you got? Okay. What's your team then? I was a big fan of the San Francisco 49ers. That was the group that I pretty much grew up with. Steve Young and all that kind of stuff was kind of my favorite. So who do you like, Jim? So anybody? Hey, Kay, it's good to meet you. I'm a pilot. We're running out of pilots, trying to get some more people. Could a helicopter be flipped upside down midair? Yeah, actually, if you actually search the Red Bull helicopter, they can actually do flips. They can do loops. Anything an airplane can actually do. The cool thing about helicopters, though, is that they can land anywhere. So they don't actually have to have a runway in order to land, but they can flip. They can do all sorts of stuff. There's a guy who I know personally. His name's Chuck Aaron. He was kind of the first Red Bull helicopter pilot, and he's the one who does all the air shows, and he's amazing. Another thing that, like, helicopters, essentially, you can probably search the Fred North. He's a helicopter pilot that actually does movies. Most of the movies that you see that are like American made are like kind of Michael Bay kind of stuff. He does a ton of those kind of movies and things. Hey, Harry, it's good to meet you. Do you have any questions about helicopters? Right now, I'm pretty much waiting for a lesson. Okay, so how old do you have to be licensed? That's a great question, Kay. Ultimately, you can start learning early. You could actually start learning from a Microsoft Flight Simulator even. You can play video games to essentially start learning some of the aspects of helicopters. And so you could be any age, but there are certain times for license. Hey, Bryce. Hey, it's good to meet you, Bryce. It's good to have you. I'm a little early, so I was kind of trying to test this. Bryce is the student that's going to kind of go through most of this class, so it may end up being a little bit boring for some people. To be licensed, though, you have to be at least 16 years old, so you can actually get a pilot's license before you get a driver's license in some cases. When you want to work, though, you have to be at least 18 years old. So Hi, John. It's good to meet you, John. I think I've seen you in my feed before, so that's pretty good. And then any other questions on helicopters? Hey, Farley, or anything that people are interested in knowing about the helicopter industry. I've been teaching for 20 years, so I do have a little bit of experience on flying helicopters. I've been a flight instructor for 20 years, so I don't think I'm going to keep very many people on this thing. That's kind of funny. Bryce, are you pretty much at a situation to start working on some flight and stuff or anything else? They may have. I think I may have some people that are waiting till 6 o'clock because I kind of told people that's probably when I'm going to get on. So, what do you think about? Oh, I can pin a comment now. Tap to pin. Moderators can do this too. Oh, so I got to figure out how I can make a moderator. Hey, Summer, how's it going? Hey, Steven, how's your night? You guys do anything fun tonight? I know this is probably everything. You got your book and your computer ready, which is great. I'm not sure if I can make a moderator. I'm not going to try right now. I'll just have to watch my feed so I don't get any crazy stuff. Hey, Charles, it's good to meet you. Thanks for coming by. I basically am setting up to do some flight instruction. It's probably something that you might want to know. Dig Bricks Bets joins. Good to meet you. This is an interesting thing, Bryce, I'll tell you. I'm hoping I can at least get 2 students that want to learn how to fly because we can try to save some money. Hey, Bryce, if you want to tell the chat essentially how much that you're going to save per hour in ground just by going through this, they may actually be more excited to stick around. I don't know. So yeah, it's interesting. Hey, William, it's good to meet you. Hey, Ava, thanks for stopping by. If you're interested, I'm basically going to be doing some flight instruction free lessons. I may have to stand away so people can actually see what's going on. A flight instructor for about 20 years. I don't know if everybody can hear me okay. So I'm basically testing my stuff. I have plans. Yeah, with the groundwork alone, you'll save $20,000 to $25,000 altogether. So that is exactly what we're trying to do. I really hope we can get you saving some money on helicopters and stuff too. Hey, Apple user, it's good to meet you. Has anybody been in a helicopter besides Bryce? Because that's going to help everything else too. I found out, Bryce, that for the most part, in order for me to start recommending products and things, I have to actually have some time on here and actually be kind of in there for a while. So, hey, Teresa Mayu, it's good to meet you. Thanks for coming by. I am going to be doing this. This is going to be some free lessons on helicopters and how how they work. Try to save some people some money on those kind of things. This is it's funny because I can always see the. Oh, you want to know what, Bryce? You can click on the screen a couple times and actually tap it to make it more popular because there's some likes that will come up. The more likes that the stream actually has, it potentially can kind of grow the actual stream. I don't know if anybody's actually going to be getting on all that much, but it may just be you. I don't know. Yeah, liking the live. It's funny because most of the people that I've met on here are they're streaming games, and that's actually the thing that got them more interest. And the people are talking, and they're people are basically scrolling through that. Of course, it's better if you're a beautiful woman because that's like 90% of the people that are out here trying to do some things. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I think most people are probably going to be like, this is the most boring kind of topics in order to do. But yeah, I don't know. 30 minutes or so, we'll finally go live. Hey, Ash, it's good to meet you. What I'm basically talking about is if you've ever flown in a helicopter before, Ash. Oh, no. Okay. Not really. Good to know. Do you know how popular it is for people to be on here just showing people Pokemon? It's insane, actually. It's crazy because there's people who actually make tons of money just open up Pokemon cards and all that kind of stuff. So that makes me feel old just to deal with this. You know, Bryce, if you're ready, we can start. I don't really care that much to try to wait too much about everything else. I was going to wait till 30 more minutes, but we're really not keeping too many. What do you think? Do you think I have to? Hey, God's Granny, it's good to meet you. Have you ever flown in a helicopter before? So, hey guys, I'm Ariana. Thanks for coming by, Ariana. Have you ever flown in a helicopter before? Have you ever had an interest in learning how to fly helicopters? Hey, joined. Go for it whenever you're ready. If I wait 30 more minutes, though, it's possible that, hey, God's Granny, it's good to meet you again. It is possible for the most part that we'll just get a couple people who ultimately want to go through the whole thing. If I can get some people who want to go through the whole thing, maybe I should wait. I don't know. I'm curious to see if we actually get some people besides you. But that's the test of this whole thing, is trying to see if there's actually some people that are out there. Hey, God's Granny, have you, I've seen you a couple times, but have you actually flown in a helicopter before? Have you actually been up in a helicopter? And how's your night been? How are you doing, God's Granny? If you're still on. You're only the second person who's kind of stuck around a little bit. I had a gym guy. Hey, Jody, how's it going? Have you ever been in a helicopter before? I'm curious to know if you have ever had an experience where you're flying in a helicopter. Hey, Mikhail, good to meet you. How's your night been? We're not keeping anybody, huh? Jeez. How's your night, Bryce? How are you doing? What are you up to? Hey, Mikhail, if you're still there. Well, that's good. I couldn't get a person to come start the helicopter for me, so that became a kind of a problem. Oh, you jumped off. Good job. Hey, Selma, how's it going? Have you been in a helicopter before? I'm just wondering. It's good to meet you. Hey, Jasmine, how's it going? Have you ever been in a helicopter before? Just wondering how your experience has been, if you know anything about helicopters. I'm waiting till about 6 o'clock. I'm actually going to be doing some lessons on how helicopters actually work. We need more pilots, so I'm doing some ground for free. It's going to save some people some money if I can do it that way. So, how's your night been, Jasmine? Have you doing anything fun? I know it's a Sunday for everybody. Hey, Thomas, how's it going? Hey, G. Thanks for stopping by. Appreciate you guys at least checking it out. I know it's probably not the most topic friendly that you're looking for. Hey, Mania. Hey, Wilmar. Thanks for coming by. Have you ever been in a helicopter before? Has anybody been in a helicopter before? That's the first question I should ask. What do you know? All that kind of stuff. Hey, Harry, how's it going? Thanks for stopping by. Hey, Jessica. It's good to meet you. How's your night been? I am waiting for essentially 6 o'clock. I'm going to start doing some classes on flying helicopters. Trying to get some things. Hey, Denpei. It's good to meet you. I don't know who that actual person is. Hey, Fancy. How's it going? It's good to meet you. Thanks for coming by. I'm actually going to be doing this. Helicopter needs more pilots, so... Let's see if anybody knows what the bottom one is, the bottom issue, or the bottom thing that's actually a force that's acting on the helicopter. That was the first question I'm going to do. Good, great. Okay. Hey, Eliza, how's Shorty? Thanks for stopping by. I know everybody's probably feeding through quickly to try to find something that's interesting to learn or do, all that kind of stuff. It's funny how TikTok is. It really is. So it's my first time live. Hey, Stanley. Hey, Mary. How's it going? It's good to meet you. Have you ever been in a helicopter before? Anybody? Hey, Aubrey. How are you doing? If you have an interest in learning how to fly helicopters, if you have any questions about helicopters, I've been flying for 20 years, and so I'm out here just essentially trying to help people learn how to fly helicopters and try to save some money for them. Hey Charles, how's it going? How's everybody night? Anybody been doing anything interesting besides scrolling through TikTok? My day has been essentially teaching a student that's been with the industry for a couple of years. I teach advanced training. So today I'm just going to do something. Hi sir, how's it going? How's your night been? I don't have very many people coming on, but I'm going to see if I can get some other stuff going on. Let's see if I can send people a thing. Let's see. I'm going to try to get some more things. Hey Steven, how's it going? How's your night? This is kind of what I'm doing for tonight. I'm going to spend some time teaching some lessons. It's going to save some people money if they have an interest in learning how to fly helicopters. So, are you a fan of helicopters at all, Steven? Is there anything I can answer questions about? We are never, the retention is so bad here. Hey Lillian, it's good to meet you. How's your night? This is what I'm going to be working on for today. I'm going to be teaching people how to fly helicopters. I may have to come up with a better way to get people kind of interested. But where are you from, Lillian? Do you have anything fun going on? Oh, everybody just wants to go away. So I probably need like a sign or something above my head just to kind of get people's attention and stuff. Hey, San Diego, Mike, it's good to meet you. Have you ever flown in a helicopter over San Diego at all? And then, let's see. So, I am going to essentially start teaching people how to fly at 6 o'clock, I think. I'm going to try. It's going to be interesting. I think, you know, if this live doesn't really work out very well, I may just go back to the regular videos or go back to doing video games and then playing that and then kind of talking about helicopters and stuff like that too. Hey, Eduardo, how's it going? How's your night? Hey, Yun, it's good to meet you. How's your night? Hopefully it's good. Everybody's stopping by. I wonder if there's a lot of people just kind of sticking around just to kind of swipe through. This is the first time I've gone live. How's it going, Jorge? It's good to meet you. Where are you from? Anything? Here we go. Hey, user. It's good to meet you. Thanks for coming by. See if anybody knows the thing that I'm doing out there. Yeah, I appreciate the likes, Bryce. Hopefully people will start to come on by. We just need to get just to 6 o'clock. All right. Oh, it's going to be good to finally start teaching this, though, instead of just trying to introduce myself. How's it going, David? How's it going, Haley? Have you ever been in a helicopter before? I'm going to be teaching people how to fly helicopters. If you have questions about the industry or even questions about helicopters in general, let me know. I've been 20 years as a pilot. I've been flying for a lot of different companies. I did medical flying, so I am essentially somebody who knows a little bit about the industry. I'll be teaching how to fly. This is kind of the whole thing. I'm trying to do some free lessons on how helicopters work, and we're trying to build some more pilots. Even if I get one helicopter pilot out of here, just one, then I've kind of secured what I'm trying to do. Trying to save some money for people, and essentially the cost of learning how to fly can be expensive, but sometimes ground school can actually be extremely expensive. Thanks for stopping by, Dandy, and staying a little bit longer, because do you have any questions on helicopters? Hey, Jeremy, how's it going? How's your night? Is there anything that anybody who's flown a helicopter and has any questions on how helicopters work or how the industry kind of goes? I'm going to be going through all the lessons essentially for free. The goal that I have is to put all the lessons online. Hey, Martha, thank you very much for sharing the live. If you have anybody who you think would be interested in learning how to fly helicopters, I really am trying to just build up an industry. We're running out of pilots. Average salary for a helicopter pilot right now is about $83,000. That's kind of the middle range. The higher range and stuff gets to about $160,000 to $170,000. The industry starts off a little bit slower, but you can make quite a bit of money overall. And the biggest thing for helicopters, though, is it's way more fun than you would think. I've been all over the place. If you look at my feed or look at my Instagram, there's some photos of what I've done, and I've seen some amazing things. I've also transported some famous people, Mark Zuckerberg and Gordon Ramsay, a couple of football players that have won some things. Hey, Michael, thanks for coming by. So I know that most people would probably make more money doing some streams and other things potentially. I know a couple of streamers that are on here, but I enjoy it. I've been flying for 20 years, and I absolutely enjoy the fact that I can potentially help people. Oh no, my phone is saying that I'm low in power. That's actually something that I probably should fix. So, hey Aiden, how's it going? I'm glad I'm on here trying to figure this out, Bryce, because ultimately it looks like I am actually going to run out of battery power unless I get a charger going on. And I am not sure how I will get a charger with my microphone in there as well. Hey Aiden, how's it going? Have you had any questions on helicopters? I'm out here essentially going to teach. I'm really hoping that I don't have to, hey Juan, thank you for the like. Thank you, Mike, for coming in. I'm really hoping that I don't have to just disconnect my microphone and just go by the phone itself, because I am already at 20%. Thank you for liking. Thank you for following. That's awesome. Basically, following hopefully will help you to learn how to fly helicopters, or at least learn more about helicopters. Oh, thanks so much. I appreciate it. This is not common for me to get online. I basically, or on TikTok anyways, I haven't been on TikTok before. This is kind of the first time. But I've been flying for 20 years, and I have to reach out to the next generation. If we don't have new pilots, we're running out. The world really actually needs pilots. If we don't have anybody like me helping pilots to get into the industry, we're going to run out of pilots. So I appreciate that. I really do appreciate the follow. Hey, Brandon, it's good to meet you. Have you ever been in a helicopter, Juan? Have you ever gotten a helicopter ride at all? And so, never been. Okay. What kind of location are you at? Where are you from? LA. Oh, there's a ton of really good flight schools in LA. I actually flew around there a couple times in Long Beach area. The Robinson Factory Course is nearby LA in Torrance. So a lot of people ended up going to LA in order to fly helicopters and actually get some advanced training from there. It's not actually that expensive to try to get up a ride. typically you can spend like $100 or something to just do a tour. Highly recommend it because it makes your the view is so much different over the cities compared to how it looks like on the ground and stuff. So thank you very much though for the compliments and everything else. What's the longest time I've ever flown in a helicopter? Are you talking about like the length of a flight itself or the length of a trip? Because I've flown in long cross countries that have taken a couple days. I flew from Baltimore to Missouri not too long ago. I flew from Utah to Texas in a Black Hawk because I was actually a Black Hawk pilot. And then, yeah, I mean, length of time. Most helicopters have to get some gas kind of in between. So you can't really just fly for a long period of time and then you have to land somewhere. So when I flew from Baltimore to Missouri, it was actually for a student who bought a helicopter. So that was kind of fun. And that took 2 days to do because the first day had some weather and we couldn't fly direct. But I think we took 7 hours to fly. They're not quite as fast as airplanes, but I can land anywhere. And I have landed on some crazy places. I've been a medical helicopter pilot before, so I've landed on rooftops of hospitals. I've landed in fields. I've landed in people's backyard. I've landed at banks, schools, RV parks, beaches. I've pretty much landed everywhere you can think of. It's a lot of fun. So, what do you do for work, Juan? Oh, awesome. Yeah, there's actually a guy on here that I knew that was a K9 unit and stuff, and he kind of helped me learn a little bit about the streaming side of things and stuff too. But yeah, LA police, yeah, you guys would use it a lot. Currently, I work for Heli Inc. They do the news, so we're the guys who are actually flying over the cities and taking videos of everything and hopefully not getting in the way of the police department. Thank you for what you do, though. The police is a very kind of important job, too. I'm sure you're finding that it's probably harder to convince people to even get into the police department and stuff, too. I am going to be starting up and doing lessons at 6 o'clock, so in about 10 more minutes. I may have to pause this just so I can figure out how to get my phone charged and stuff, because was testing this and trying to see how it would work, and I realized some of the issues that I could find. I was not expecting that I would run into. Hey, Nikki, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate that, Juan. I'm not sure if I can find the right kind of plug for this, but I think I can. So I may pause this just for a second so I can see what the charge is and everything too. I'm at 20%. This is a new phone, so it's really not too bad, but I'm going to be going through some lessons, so it's actually going to be pretty hard to do it. Hey, Linda, it's good to meet you. Hey, Haley. Thanks for coming by. But yeah, I have one student who's pretty much this stream is for, so I'm not really trying to get too many people all that much, but if you stick around, I don't mind. We're trying to get as many pilots as I can in the air and getting more people interested in helicopters. So I'm going to pause this. I'm not even sure if that's even possible to how to do, so just give me a second. I got about 10 minutes before I'm actually supposed to go live, so let's see, and let's see if I can pause. Let's see, pause live, there we go. Pause. All right, cool. I was able to charge this, or get it charged, so that's pretty good. Thanks, Sass. All right, cool. I was able to charge this, or get it charged, so that's pretty good. Thanks, Sass, for coming back, or coming in. So, oh, right. Oh, real quick. Real quick. I am just starting, so. Oh, all right. I am just starting, so. Oh, all right. All right, so I'm probably going to put up here a recommended item, helicopter flying handbook. Helicopter Flying Handbook. That is the most recommended book I can ever do. That's where most of the lessons I'm going to be teaching are from. I'm hoping that it will help people to actually understand how helicopters and stuff work. The goal that I have, are you still on, Bryce? Are you still with me? Because I'm almost ready to get going, I think. See if I can get it. Yeah, okay, cool. All right. See if, what the heck is going on with this? I'm going to try to get everything kind of going. I'm pulling up the lesson on the 4 forces of flight first, which is basically lesson 2. It's the weight, lift, thrust, and drag. All that kind of stuff. Hey James, good to meet you. Thanks for coming by. So the I'm gonna probably have to get a sign, I think. I don't know what you think, Bryce, about having like a sign up top that says this is what I'm doing, and make it nice and bold in ways that I can make it easier to kind of do. Hey James, have you ever been in a helicopter? Anything about the helicopters that you know? Hey Dan, it's good to meet you. Come on by. This is what we're doing tonight. It might not be as fun as football, but I'm trying to save some people some money as far as to give them some ground school. Everything else too. All right. 5 more minutes and then I'm going to start this lesson, Bryce. Okay, so you can actually get, I don't know how long I'm going to be going for. I don't know. How much time do you have, Bryce? Hey Dan, you stick around and you can learn how to fly. Helicopter, helicopter. Do 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 do. A couple hours. Okay, so I'm gonna do as much as I possibly can because I want to do a lot of damage to your knowledge and try to get try to get as much knowledge as I can into it. And I'll go as much as you really need to, of course. If I have to have breaks in between, I don't know. Hey Tommy, thanks for coming by. This is what we're doing tonight, and if you don't want to learn it tonight, you can always come back later. I'm going to be around, I think. So what do you think though, as far as the setup goes, Bryce? Give me some good feedback. Hey Taylor, hey Marilyn, thanks for coming, stopping by. What's the what are you seeing about it? If there's anything I can improve on, I would love to know some backup stuff because this is my first feed, of course. So, hey Marilyn, have you ever been in a helicopter before? Thanks for coming by. How was your night? Sign definitely wouldn't hurt. I think you're right. Well, I mean, I'm in my office, so of course I'm not going to put anything up on the wall. That would be kind of funny. You'd be seeing like this little sign that says, you know, what's going on and all that kind of stuff. I definitely want to make it so that it's easier to read. So I'm really hoping that I can set up my computer next time so I can actually show the text instead of writing, because my handwriting sucks. It's not very good. But I think that would probably be helping, to have a sign that's talking about the lessons, free lessons. Maybe I can get a sign that says free lessons on top, at least there, so that people kind of understand. Hey, Yoso, it's good to meet you. Thanks for coming by. I don't think anybody's going to stick around too much. Alrighty then. So I'm going to use this bottom part and then leave this up here so everybody can kind of see. Can you read the words, Bryce? Hey, Mike, how's it going? Can you read that word there, Bryce? As far as because it's in the light. I know it's the contrast is probably a little bit different, but I'm trying to keep my face a little bit. Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. Nice. That's good. All right. So we're gonna get this party started, I think. Because we got a lot of stuff to cover tonight. If somebody comes in and here's what I think if you want to do, Bryce, if you can just put a statement or something in the chat, or just kind of interact with the people potentially in the chat and kind of tell them what's going on. But just kind of help them to kind of know where the lessons are going or how those kind of go, because I'm going to be probably covering quite a bit of data and stuff, but if they ever want to come back, or if they ever want to live stream directly those lessons for themselves, then I want to make sure that they have an opportunity to kind of do everything. Hey, Kanta, thanks for coming by. This is what I'm going to be doing tonight. Yeah, appreciate it, Bryce. So we're going to talk first about how a helicopter essentially works. Hopefully you're going to hear it a million times, Bryce, I'm sure, if you're on this thing a couple times. But helicopters are basically like vacuum cleaners, so they suck themselves up into the sky, and then we're basically pointing the hose wherever we want to go. The force that basically is the vacuum that gets us off the ground is called lift. The force that gets us to go forward is the vacuum called thrust. Anytime we're trying to move up, we have to oppose this force, which is going to be the weight. And my handwriting is not great, so unfortunately I can't do much. Hey, Mikey. So you got weight, lift, thrust, and drag. Those are the four main forces of flight that are forces that are acting on a helicopter that you're in flight. The most important thing, of course, is that lift is vacuum, and so there's a couple of components to it that actually matter. Hi, how's it going? It doesn't have a name. So I'm going to talk first about the lift equation, because that's actually one of the more important things that are actually out there. So it's 1/2 times coefficient of lift times area times velocity squared times a little kind of P that actually stands for the density of the air. So these are all the components that create the lift that we're trying to do. Weight's something that's going to happen no matter what we do, because we're living on Earth. Weight is basically the force of gravity on the mass of us. So the weight is going to be essentially, if we're just sitting here at one point, we're going to have 1g that we're actually trying to fight. So 1 times the force of gravity. In order to get off the ground, we have to create enough suction or enough lift in order to get off the ground. So if we weigh, let's say for like a Jet Ranger, it's 4,450 pounds, we actually have to create 4,450 pounds plus 1 if we actually want to climb or to get off the ground. So our lift has to be 4,451 pounds to actually get us off the ground. So when you are essentially opposing the weight, all you really have to do is create enough suction upward in order to get off the ground. There's 2 blades on this rotor system, so each blade has to individually basically create the total of the lift that's necessary. So the total amount it's got to be up to 4,451. You can always go faster, you can always climb faster, you just have to make a bigger vacuum. So it's basically going to be stronger against gravity. Gravity doesn't go away. That's the one thing that you have to understand, is that if we don't fight gravity, gravity wins. We will come down no matter how we go. Hi, thanks for coming, Dan, getting some lessons and stuff. I'm going to try to go through this without getting too distracted and stuff, and Bryce is going to help with helping keep things in order. So with two blades, so we have 2 blades, we can divide that amount by 2. The lift equation is actually what's necessary, so it's 1/2 times the coefficient of lift times area times velocity squared times the density of the air. We need all of these components in order to get off the ground or to create lift. If one of these is 0, then the whole thing doesn't work. So if the velocity is 0, then it's not going to work at all. If the density of the air is 0, then it's not going to work. Helicopters actually don't fly in space because they can't fly in space. The helicopter is essentially a vacuum, so it can't create another vacuum inside of a vacuum. If you ever see, there are some videos on YouTube of a fly trying to fly in the vacuum of space, and the flies can't fly. Or they basically took a vacuum chamber that they created, and the flies actually can't fly inside of the vacuum. Helicopters can't fly if it's basically the density of the air is 0, if there's nothing there. I personally love the lift equation. You're going to see the lift equation through the entire part of the training, because the lift equation is really kind of a cool way to understand how both these blades are kind of working and how they are different. But each blade has to essentially share a load. If you have 4 blades, then the load is shared by the 4 blades to create the lift that's actually required. But the velocity is the number one thing that's the most important part. So the velocity is actually squared. So if the velocity is 400 feet per minute, or basically 4.5 miles per hour, that has to be squared. So it's going to be 400 times 400. So that's the most important component for the helicopter to get off the ground. That's the most important for lift. Airplane wings, they work the exact same way, but helicopters spin the blades in order to get that velocity. The velocity is created essentially with 2 different factors, or 2 different ways. There's an induced flow, and then there's a transverse flow. The induced is actually something that we have to create. Induced meaning kind of like induced labor. When you have to force the labor, it's called an induced labor. So an induced flow is actually forced through the rotor system by the helicopter itself. So there's 2 ways that the induced flow is created. It's created by the movement of the blades, the spin of the blades themselves. That's creating the induced flow a little bit. But also, because of the design of the blades, there's airflow that's getting sucked down through the rotor system, and that's actually what's creating the velocity. The velocity, again, is the most important part of the helicopter working. If your velocity is low, you can't fight gravity. And if your velocity is essentially less than 100% when it comes to the rotor speed, you're not going to be able to fight gravity effectively. So velocity is kind of key. Helicopters fly with a constant rate of RPM, or a constant rate of velocity of basically the rotor spinning. So we're keeping that velocity up the whole entire time that we're flying. If we don't keep the velocity up, we're gonna descend. We get what's called a low rotor RPM. And I think, Bryce, you've seen that or talked about that with your initial, is that correct? I think we talked about that in the when we were doing the awareness training about low rotor RPM. So that kind of thing. I'm going to kind of continue about the flows and stuff. So the induced flow is something we create. And then the transverse flow is actually something kind of cool. Yeah, you gave me an example, good. Okay, transverse flow is actually kind of a cool flow. Transverse flow is kind of the free wind velocity that's coming from the atmosphere. So the transverse flow is coming because of air that's actually flowing over the rotor disc or over the rotor system, or the helicopter moving through the air itself. So induced flow and transverse flow both combine together to kind of give us that velocity. So without those two together, we probably wouldn't be able to get off the ground as much. So the other components that are actually part of this lift equation is the area of the actual blades. So that's the actual area surface of the blades that are actually involved with the actual production of lift. Not all of the blade itself will actually create lift. It's actually, there's some parts that don't create lift at all. But the area that actually is designed to create lift is the area that we're talking about. Hopefully you're recording this. I don't know. I shouldn't. I don't know. The coefficient of lift is actually what's called an angle of attack. So an angle of attack, let's see if I can write correctly. Is that angle? Angle of attack. So the coefficient of lift is kind of an interesting thing. It's an angle that is actually aerodynamic. We actually can't physically create the total angle of attack or the actual, we can't really get the full outcome on our own. We actually are getting a lot of stuff. Hey, Dalek, thanks for coming by. Teaching some lessons and stuff. If you want to come and ask them, anybody can ask questions too. I don't really mind. And Bryce, if you have questions as well, just kind of speak up and stuff, because I'm kind of watching what everybody's trying to do. But angle of attack is actually an aerodynamic angle. And it's not something that we can actually physically ensure that we have. And we're not guaranteed to get the actual angle of attack that we want. We're just hoping that we do. We create essentially the angle of attack with a couple of different components, and the airflow that's going over this induced flow and transverse flow, that impacts the actual angle of attack. If the angle of attack is 0, if I'm sitting on the ground, my blades, the angle of attack kind of looks at the edge like that. It'll be flat like that. So I'm not going to get off the ground if my angle of attack is 0. I could be spinning with the highest velocity. I could have the most area of the blades, but I can't get off the ground if the angle of attack is 0. And if my density of the air is 0, nothing's going to work. But I cannot fight gravity unless all of these are kind of combined together in order to create lift. Do you have any questions, Bryce? Anything yet? Hopefully this is a little bit better than the book that you're reading. The recommended book is the Helicopter Flying Handbook for anybody who wants to know. You can find that on it's a PDF online. Take some notes. Good. Awesome. Thanks. All right, good. If you have questions or if something doesn't quite make sense, I need you to kind of speak up. I've tried very hard to make these very simple lessons so that people can actually learn how to fly helicopters, but I don't know everybody's background and experience, so I try to cater to those kind of things. So if you have questions, definitely let me know. Thank you for the 5 users that have stuck around a little bit longer and everything too. I'm going to be going through quite a few lessons and stuff too. All right, so the velocity for the induced flow is something we're gonna start to kind of talk a little bit more about. And again, if I erase something and I'll have to go back at another time. I can always do the live again, and people can ask questions if they're not going to get all the information so far. But we're always trying to fight gravity. Gravity is going to win if we don't fight it. If we want to fight gravity, we have to create enough lift. We have to create at least 1 more pound of lift, which is basically a vacuum force, in order for us to get off the ground, in order to fly and actually get off the Earth's surface. And all these components kind of get together. The coefficient of lift, which is the angle of attack. How long does it take to get the pilot's license? So I'm going to pause for a second for the lesson. It took me 6 months to actually become a professional pilot. So I started in 2004 and I was done in 2005. You can go as fast as you want. You can actually become a pilot very quickly if you have the money to be able to do the experiences. The goal that I have is actually cut the cost of the instruction down, so you actually don't have to pay for the ground school. So you can go as quickly as you want. Most people take 2 to 3 years. It can be a college degree that you can go into, but I did it in 6 months. If you have enough of the resources, Bryce is a student. He's actually somebody who's going to be flying with me sometime, maybe in the next week or two. And he's going to essentially, hopefully, take over some of the jobs that are out here. But did that answer your question? Is there anything else I can answer for you? One ton fun? I've been flying for 20 years, so I try to answer as many questions about helicopters as I can. My goal is to try to make the lessons essentially free. So I appreciate the question, though. And I think that's what most people are trying to wonder about. Are you still on One Ton Fun? If you're a fixed wing guy, it doesn't take as much time because some of the information translates over to the fixed wing license or the helicopter license that you have for fixed wing. So, right. What is the total money it cost? Okay, that question is variable, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood, depending on where you go, to about $100,000. It's a little bit steep for some people because, and I had to take a student loan and actually able to do it. So I was actually with a college, Utah Valley University, and then I was able to essentially graduate and then defer my loans until I was able to do it. It's an investment of time, 1 ton. It is an investment in money, but it pays pretty well because the industry right now, the average I think is about $92,000 a year. So that will pay you back pretty good. Plus you'll get to see some pretty amazing things and go to some amazing places. It's very easy to make 6 figures once you get a little bit farther into your career. When you first start off, it's kind of like becoming a doctor. So any other questions I can answer for you, 1 ton? The whole goal is to save you money. That's the biggest reason I'm on here. I'm trying to save people money on flying helicopters by doing these lessons. Hopefully that makes some sense, you know. But is there any other questions people have on helicopters? Awesome, cool, thanks. I'm going to keep going 1 ton, but I'm going to keep watching the feed and stuff. Bryce is a great resource because he's kind of going through the same kind of questions. He's 18 years old. So he's trying to figure out that kind of stuff as well. But the sooner you start, the more you're going to get out of the career. So if you start now, you're going to end up with a longer career that pays pretty well. I am very close to making $200,000 this year. So that's kind of something to let you know. All right. So I've been talking a little bit about the 4 forces of fight. We have the weight, lift, thrust, and then we have drag. We mostly talked about the weight being something we have to overcome. Lift is something that both of the blades have to kind of share the load for. And then the components of the lift equation is 1/2 times coefficient of lift times area of the blades that are actually producing lift times velocity of the blade air going over the blades and the density of the air. And if any of those is 0, then you're not going to get off the ground. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this velocity because that's a key element for us to fly helicopters. If the blades are slowing down too much, that's what's going to cause us to basically lose the fight against gravity and we're going to fall out of the sky. The wind velocity is, let me erase this a little bit. Sorry guys if you're new or coming in new. So I've been already kind of briefing Bryce a little bit about some of the things ahead of time, but there's some YouTube videos that are out there that are actually really helpful to understand these specific kind of items. There is a video that is actually produced by Cambridge. It actually shows the airflow going over the blades themselves, so you can kind of see that. So let me talk a little bit about this velocity, the induced flow and the transverse flow, because those are velocities that's going to interact with the blade itself. Or maybe I should actually start first with the design of the blades as well. That's probably going to help. So the design of the blades are designed to increase the velocity of the air, because basically what they're designed to do is separate the air and force the air to go a little bit farther distance on top and kind of shorter distance underneath. These blades are essentially called airfoils. And this is a kind of a model, so it's not the best kind of model to actually work with. But blades are designed to increase velocity of the actual air. Wait, dragging, I have to drag that's funny. I had to drag something because I've been on this for so long. I had to drag something over to make it work. I took a single engine flight school with I-14. My parents had a business fire. Oh no. So wait, a single engine airplane as far as that goes? Because well, when you're 14, yeah, when you're 14. I'm sorry to hear that. That is a bummer. All right, so how many flight hours did you get? Because flight hours don't expire. You can start right back up with flight hours that you have. That's sorry. I'm sorry. There's no words when a parent runs out of has a fire and things like that. And I want to understand that you were 14 years old at that time when you did the ride or something. Age green, 38. That's a great hours. That's way better. You probably have a little bit of experience on how to take off and land and all that. Was it all fixed wing stuff? Sorry, I'm waiting for One Ton. He's got a good question here. If you guys have questions, welcome back, Juan. It's good to see you. I started a little bit on time, so let's see. I'm going to start drawing some things up here while you're waiting for the answer. So for the most part, though, the blades themselves are designed to increase velocity of the air. There are two blade designs, 172. That's good. I don't stop. Don't give up on the dream. I was able to do it. My family grew up very poor. We had 5 kids in the family. I had to get a student loan in order to actually pay for everything. Don't give up on the dream. If 38 hours is a ton of flight time, it's a lot of good experience. You should be able to pick it up very quickly again. So I hope you can get back into it to One Ton, because honestly, there's nothing more rewarding than taking up like family and friends up into a helicopter. So yeah, hopefully you can get back into it. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the airfoils and their design, because that's actually going to be what causes the flow and the velocity of the actual air flow itself. Whenever we're talking about velocity in the lift equation, we're not necessarily always talking about the rotation of the blades. We're actually talking about the total velocity, or the outcome of all the forces, or all the winds and everything else that are actually occurring to the blades themselves. So it's the velocity of the airflow that's going over the wings that are actually creating that lift essentially too. So there's 2 different blade designs. There's a symmetrical, which that's not that symmetrical. Let's see if I can make something that looks symmetrical. Maybe that's a little better. So there's a symmetrical airfoil, and then there's a non-symmetrical or asymmetrical airfoil. Thank you for following me. Good. I'm going to keep posting lessons on the feed and stuff. I'm going to try to post like really simple things, really short stuff. Try to keep everybody's attention a little bit. But I can always go live directly for you 1 ton if you actually want me to cover anything specific. I'm trying to get as many people as we can flying, so I don't mind taking a couple hours here and there to try to get some people some more knowledge and stuff. So if you want to be able to essentially get the lesson directed to you, I can totally help you as much as I can. And then right now I'm kind of trying to teach Bryce as much, because he's brand new. He's got half hour of flying, so he's kind of new. All right, so the airfoils, excuse me, are basically designed to separate the air, and it makes the air on the top of the blades go faster, and it makes the air underneath the blades go slower. And there's a great video that Cambridge actually shows the airflow. They use smoke over a wing, and it's awesome. It's so good because they actually have slow motion that actually shows the kind of smoke trails going over the wing itself. And you can actually see the wind slowing down on the bottom, and you can actually see the airflow on the top going faster. So airfoils are really cool. Airfoils are pretty much anything that can create lift or thrust. They're specifically designed not to be like a block of air going through, or a block or something. This would not be an airfoil because it's just a round surface and stuff. So an airfoil kind of looks like that on the tip of stuff. But the airfoils are designed to make this air go on faster, this airflow, and slower underneath. So this faster air on top has something that's going to basically change the actual pressure over top of the blade because of what's called Bernoulli's principle. So Bernoulli's principle is that if a fluid is going faster, the pressure is going to get less or reduced. If the airflow is going slower, the pressure is actually going to increase. That negative pressure is our vacuum. Helicopters and airplanes, essentially, they suck themselves up in the sky with their airfoils. The difference with a helicopter is that our airfoils are spinning around, so we're basically pointing the hose where we want to go in order to get to basically wherever our destination is. So that faster air with Bernoulli's principle, I don't know if you guys can read that, but Bernoulli's principle. There's a funny story of how Bernoulli actually decided that actually was how Bernoulli's principle actually happened. He was watching some sewage go down the river, and when the river came to this area that was kind of narrow, geez, I can't speak, narrow, the sewage would actually get slower and go faster through the narrow spot, and then it would get slower on the other on the tighter spots that were wider spots and stuff. Anyways, Bernoulli's principle is essentially how that negative pressure, that vacuum, is going to be created. The two airfoils work differently than, and they also have some advantages and disadvantages. The airfoil that is symmetrical and asymmetrical, there's some advantages for both of those. For symmetrical, they're very stable. And the stability is a very important thing because the helicopter blades can be very long. And if you don't have a stable, basically rotor, you're going to have some twist in there, and the twist can actually be a problem. Stability for the rotor itself is because of what's called a center of pressure. There is a forward part of the blade, which is called a leading edge, and their aft part of the blade, which is called a trailing edge. We create kind of like a line kind of in the middle of those between the two, and it's got to be a straight line called a chord line. The center of pressure acts on that chord line, and if it is a stable or a basically symmetrical blade, that center of pressure doesn't move very much along the span of the actual rotor. Do you think the wind is trying to tell us something, but we don't know how to hear? Okay, so I think that is a great question because this is actually we're kind of in an ocean compared to, we're in kind of an ocean of fluid. There's definitely a lot of vibrations and everything that's going on, but we can't even see the wind all that much anymore either. I think that fish probably don't see the water like we see the water, but you can definitely see it. What do you think the air is, or the wind is trying to tell you? I can't say your name. E-L-L-E. Sorry, I cannot say your name. I don't really know how to say it. I apologize. There's a lot of things the universe is trying to tell us. Let's just say that for the most part. If you have a good way to think about what the wind is telling us, that would be great. All right, so the symmetrical blade, which is this one right here. Sorry, I probably should have distinguished those. The symmetrical blade is more stable. El-Yeye? Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I'll tell you that I'm horrible sometimes with different names and things. So did you just start and just caught on the wind stuff? Do you have any elaborations on what the wind is actually doing or what it can tell us? I'm sure everybody would want to know what you think the wind's trying to tell us. So I'm going to try to continue as much as I can because I got a lot of stuff to cover for Bryce. Bryce is really the guy who's on here to try to learn everything. Does it count as ground school? Yes. So here's the coolest part, all right? I don't have to be an airplane pilot to teach you all the stuff that's necessary for ground. I can teach you all this stuff that's necessary to pass a check ride or ground school kind of thing. So it all kind of helps with that kind of stuff. So yeah, it does count as ground school. I can actually give you the log of the ground if you actually need to later on. That's a great question. Thank you for asking that, One Ton, because hi from Utah. Thanks. Okay, I was a Utah National Guard Black Hawk pilot, so good on you. Thanks for coming over, Oswald. I'm talking about some stuff here that may be helpful. We need some pilots out there, so I'm trying to teach them things. Do you have any other, since you're here, One Ton, is there anything that I'm not correctly talking about? Is there anything that you have questions about? Because then I can take a pause and take a drink and wait for a question potentially. What part of Utah are you from? I am getting some dry mouth. Oh, thank you. Thank you for great information. I have been teaching for 20 years, so I'm really trying to be very, very cognizant of what you know and what you don't know. Oh, all right. So I was in several parts of Utah. I got my training at Universal Helicopters in Provo. I went to Utah Valley University for college, got my bachelor's and 2 associate's degrees, and then I flew Blackhawks in West Jordan. So I've been to Utah a lot. I love the snow. Are you getting any snow out there, Oswald? Because I really actually want to come out and go snowboarding, if I can. I haven't been snowboarding since last year, and I went to Brighton and I miss it. So any questions though, One Ton? It's good to see you from Ohio. I'm in Missouri, so I'm not too far. 20 minutes from Provo, no snow yet. See, that's dumb. How does that actually, man, it's January. It's supposed to be like 5 mountains of snow outside the door. So, all right, cool. It's good to meet you, Oswald. Welcome. I'm doing some helicopter lessons. I'm probably going to do something with a sign. I was already recommended to make it easier to make people understand what I'm trying to do. I am teaching a student, mostly trying to focus on some of those things. So that if you have any specific questions, I may not be able to cover them right now. I'm going to cover those later again, or I can do a free session again because I'm trying to get it. Watched a movie. Scarlett watched a movie. Okay. Hopefully this is a good movie. All right. All right, getting back to this because I really we do have a lot to cover, I'm sure. Bryce, are you getting bored out of your mind, or are you falling asleep already? So, price range on a helicopter, the lower level, what would you say the price range? Okay, so are you looking to buy a helicopter? Because you can get an R-44 for about $200,000, but it's getting close to the overhaul. 22s are a little cheaper. Not yet. Okay. Bryce, if I'm going to have issues with talking to people, let me know, because I'm here for there. Good. All right. Flying is fun. I love it. I've honestly had some of the best parts of my career flying over in San Francisco Bay, because I flew Mark Zuckerberg, I flew Gordon Ramsay, a couple of different cool people. So I'm glad that you're enjoying this kind of stuff. All right, so let's get back to this. Airfoils are symmetrical or non-symmetrical blades. They're both designed essentially to basically increase the speed over the rotor or over the rotor blade, so that we can utilize Bernoulli's principle, which is creating a negative pressure or a lower pressure above the blades, and we're getting sucked up into the sky. So that's why I'm the suckiest man alive, because I basically am flying vacuums everywhere. So symmetrical blades are stable, and because that is that center of pressure where all of the forces of the blades are acting on are going to be moving very little within the chord line of the actual blades. The non-symmetrical is a little bit more unstable. The unstable has a little bit farther movement of that center of pressure along the span of the blades. There's a couple of different parts. I probably should go to that. So the rotor system itself has a couple of different components. So I'm going to just kind of quickly run through that. This is a little different than airplanes, because airplanes have essentially an attachment to the wing itself, but the rotor blades are actually attached to what's called the mast or main rotor hub. So right here on the end is all the moving components called the hub. And that hub is all the mechanical parts. So every part of that mechanical, the pitch links, I don't know, you can see a little bit. All of those non-moving parts are essentially called the hub. It's what holds the blades on there, and it has to have quite a bit of structure. Thank you for listening. I'm just a baby. I'm just a baby. I think that's what you're probably trying to say, right? I'm just a baby. So the hub, how long does it take fully licensed to fly? It took me 6 months to become completely licensed, from 0 hours to about 210 to become a flight instructor. So the rotor blade is not exactly a condensed version of the fixed wing. They're kind of the same thing. The only thing about it is that what we need to actually use the spin and how to combat some of the forces that are actually happening in the spin. So the fixed wing side, they don't have centrifugal force pulling on the blades. So the fixed wing side of things, they don't have any. It's like having, essentially, if you were to spin the rotor blades, you get centrifugal force that's pulling the blades out. So it's, basically having to have a stronger hold on those blades so they don't come flying off. So it's not exactly a condensed version of a fixed wing. They're basically the same. They just have different forces that are actually involved. And there's different components because of the actual spin that's actually happening. So we have the hub, where all the parts and stuff. Did that help, Bryce? Does that make sense? My handwriting is horrible, so people can hopefully do all that kind of stuff. But Bryce, let me know, did it make any more sense? They're both wings, are basically just the difference is a fixed wing is fixed to the side and a rotor wing is rotating. So okay, cool. All right, so the other part of this is called the root. Essentially, the root is kind of like a root of a tree. It's the thing that actually attaches, and there's still no essentially parts in there that are actually designed to be to basically create lift or anything else too. The root is basically the attachment of the blade to the actual hub. And then there's an area called a span. So the span is the length of the blades. So Bryce knows this, but well, he probably doesn't know this. I don't know. He probably hasn't paid too much attention to my classes when I'm teaching it actually at work. But the span is basically the length of the rotor system, or the length of the blade itself. So the long part of the blade. The Bell 206 is about 37 feet in diameter, so that's the whole span. Thank you for following, Ava. What's this? What's that, Finny boy? So the span is part of the blade itself, and then you have essentially the tip of the rotor itself that's kind of the edge of the blade itself. So we're looking at the tip right now. I love these cameras on these iPhone 7s. That's so quick. So the tip of the blades, thank you, Batman. Geez, everybody's following. Hopefully you're going to see the lessons, or not lessons, some lessons in the feed, but appreciate you guys coming by. So when we're talking about the instability, this is not just physics. This is awesome physics that make you fly helicopters. Thanks for asking. I personally love physics quite a bit, and I love aviation, and I'm talking about lift. Aerodynamics, exactly. It's aerodynamics. There's physics involved, though. I've been flying for 20 years. I've been a pilot for 20 years. I flew Blackhawks in the Army, so I'm a real pilot. So anyways, thanks for asking. All right, so we're going to get back to these two types of blades and stuff, because I'm actually trying to teach Bryce the lesson. Thanks. The non-symmetrical or asymmetrical blade is unstable because of the center of pressure that's actually working. Uniform circular motion. Okay, so I don't want to get into that because that's too much right now, because I am trying to start basic. So please wait till we get farther into that, Mira. So it would be helpful. I don't want to get too far into the physics of things. I'm trying to teach how the helicopter actually flies. The goal is that I have a student who's going to start flying the helicopter, and we want to be not. There's only so many penguins can be on this this little iceberg, and if the iceberg has run out of room, you're not going to fit anything else. So I can't go into the uniform circular motion, but anyways, geez, I'm going to get my train of thought on so many things. All right, so the non-symmetrical blade, the reason it's basically non-symmetrical, or basically, the reason it's unstable is because that center of pressure is actually going to change along the mass, or not mass, the span of the blades. So if you have the center of pressure over here, the center of pressure will kind of trail differently across the blade. And I know that's a bad kind of drawing and stuff, but that's what makes it unstable. And because of a non-symmetrical design and that instability, you get a lot of twist in the blades. So when you have a non-symmetrical system, those blades are very, very efficient at doing essentially the faster air on top. So you're getting that Bernoulli's principle, a lot stronger, basically negative pressure that we're creating, but they're very unstable. And so it actually creates a problem. So they have to make those either shorter so that that spin or that twist doesn't break the blades themselves, or they need to use some very expensive kind of composite materials and stuff. So some of the benefits is that you're going to have more lift or thrust. You're going to have more lift or thrust, but they're unstable, and so the downside is that they're expensive for producing. The symmetrical is going to be more stable because that center of pressure, that little CP, center of pressure, is not going to move very much. This one moves a lot more. This one moves just a little bit. So the center of pressure is going to allow that blade to have a lot less twist in it, and so it's going to be cheaper to kind of make. Hey Bryce, do you know what blades or what airfoil the main rotor blades are for the R44? No clue. Come on. All right. So they're symmetrical because they're cheaper, and the R44 is a little bit cheaper, but they do have some very expensive blades out there. Blackhawk has got some crazy designs and everything too. So the R44 has a symmetrical main rotor system, and it has an asymmetrical or non-symmetrical tail rotor system, because the tail rotor can be a lot smaller, and it can kind of withstand all of that problem. So the induced flow is something that we're creating. I'm going to go back to that because I'm going to try to jump back into the lesson about that. Induced flow is what we're creating. We're creating it by the spin of the actual rotor system itself, and then Bernoulli's principle that's actually creating that airflow over the top of the rotor blades. And then the transverse flow, though, is from the helicopter moving through the air, and this is missing a helicopter, so I'm going to get back to that. Helicopter moving through the air or the wind itself. So it's kind of an easier gift from the atmosphere to kind of create lift. But Bernoulli's principle is one of the bigger reasons why helicopter essentially creates lift. It is about 70% of our ability to create lift. So we're actually 70% vacuum. So that's why I'm the suckiest man alive, because I use vacuums to fly. But 70% is from Bernoulli's principle. The other thing that creates lift or helps us create lift is called Newton's third law. So Newton's third law, if you can tell me, Bryce, or somebody that if 1 ton is on, he should know what the Newton's third law is. Okay, no clue, still no clue. The only thing that has a clue is Bryce, who doesn't have a clue. Newton's third law, anybody? I wish I could give you gifts if you get it right, but I don't know how to do that yet. I'm kind of new to this kind of stuff. Newton's third law, for every action there's equal and opposite reaction. Thank you, Bryce. I'm sure you copied that off of Google because you just searched it right now. So Newton's third law is for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. Because this slower air is hitting the bottom of the blade, it's kind of forced downward. The result, or the equal and opposite reaction, is that push, basically getting the blade to go up. So there's a force underneath that's kind of pushing it up. It's kind of similar to an air hockey table, the way the air kind of hits the bottom of the puck and keeps the puck alive. When we're in a hover and we're really close to the ground, Newton's third law helps us a lot. We get what's called a ground effect because of that. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But Bernoulli's principle is actually one of the big reasons why we actually can create lift, and that creates that negative pressure of air. So that component for velocity is created by that faster airflow from Bernoulli's principle and the rotation of the actual blades themselves. The Bernoulli's principle and the faster of the blades gets essentially adjusted. Paid attention to physics a little bit. Good. That was a little bit. But I have a feeling you can't pay attention to how you can type before you... Anyway, no. That's good, though. Yeah, Newton's third law is awesome. But it really only helps us a lot when we're closer to the ground. Newton's third law doesn't really help us that much when we're just flying along. We are quite literally sucking ourselves forward because of Bernoulli's principle. So that equal and opposite reaction, though, is good. But that velocity comes from that Bernoulli's principle, and when we change the angle of the blades or the pitch of the blades, that actually changes the velocity as well. If we change the angle of attack, that actually changes the velocity as well. But the goal is to create enough velocity of air over the rotor system to create the lift that we need to actually get off the ground. So the area of the blade, this is something that needs to be kind of discussed because that's one of the components of the lift equation. Not all of the blade can actually produce lift. There's some components in here that actually are a little bit not aerodynamic, let's just say. There are a whole bunch of moving mechanical parts. So everything in the hub of the rotor system doesn't create lift at all. It just basically is a bunch of moving parts, pieces, makes the blades kind of change direction, all that kind of stuff. Change angle, not really direction. So hub and the root. The root can be designed differently. So there are certain roots that are actually cylindrical. The R44 has a cylindrical root that you can kind of see on the blades, and I'll kind of show those kind of things. And then there are some that kind of produce a little bit of lift because of the way they're designed. But in most cases, the hub and the root, there is no basically lift being produced here. The span that we're talking about is that long length of the blades. And then the width of the blades matters too. So this is length. So length times width, what does that give us? What is length times width? Thanks for showing up, Monica. Hey, I know you. Hey, stay around. Monica, you taught me so much of it, or helped me with the stream stuff, so I'm glad you came by. Thank Monica for helping me fix some stuff, or at least know a little bit about the streaming kind of world and stuff, and her husband. So I'm doing great. Good. Thanks for showing, Hunter. I'm doing great. I'm actually trying to do this lesson for Bryce. He's a 18-year-old kid, and we're trying to save him some money. Gives us area. Thank you. Life times width gives us area. You're welcome, Fabian. I'm going to teach as many people as wants to teach. I'll get on as much as I can. I love teaching. I've been teaching for 20 years. And the world needs helicopter pilots. A lot of helicopter pilots. Keep following along then, Fabian, because the more helicopter pilots I can produce, the better it is. I've got so much to share. It's going to take a long time to try to do this, and I'm going to try. Oh, thank you. I don't know what it does for the heart me. I really don't know what it does, but I appreciate it, Monica. But okay, I got to get back to this lesson as far as the length times width equals area. So the length times width equals area. That is important. What's the objective? Okay, objective to what? What do you mean? It's hard to work as a flight. Okay, so here's the thing with the Kobe Bryant thing. Hard to work as a pilot teacher at the Kobe Bryant Flight School. To this one lesson. Objective to this one lesson, I'm covering multiple lessons, Fabian. I'm going through the basic stuff first. Because what I do, here's how I kind of approach it. I've been teaching for 20 years. So I learned how to fly at a very expensive school. I spent $120,000. This was 20 years ago. So ultimately, the objective is this. I'm trying to teach the basic characteristics of a helicopter and how a helicopter works. Because if you can understand the basic characteristics of a helicopter, you can predict the behavior of the helicopter and actually fly it a lot better. What my goal is that Bryce is going to take his first lesson here in a couple of days or weeks. And the goal that I have is that his first hour, I want him hovering. I don't want him to be messing around and trying to learn how to fly a helicopter when I can try to teach some of the stuff on the ground. I've been a pilot for almost 21 years. So thanks, Monica. So I've got some experience on it. I flew Blackhawks, medical flights, all that kind of stuff. So my objective for this, though, is just to try to make the understanding so that when Bryce gets into the helicopter, he's going to fly 1 hour and hopefully fly better than most of the people who have been flying for 5. Because most people have take a little bit longer. Hovering is not that hard. It's just the fact that most people don't understand the characteristics. That's why I use analogies. So the analogy of the vacuum helps with that. So when I'm sucking forward, I know I'm sucking forward. If I'm sucking up, I know I'm fighting gravity. If the gravity is going to win, it's going to win because I'm not sucking upward. And that's what I'm trying to do. So I'll get to it. If I don't have enough lift, I ain't getting off the ground, no matter what. And I have to have air pressure, I have to have velocity, have to have area, and I have to have a coefficient of lift, which is called an angle of attack. So I have to have those things in order to create a vacuum and suck myself up into the sky. So the area of the blade, I want you to understand, the area of the blade is not always used. It's when it's coming to produce lift. There are certain instances that the area of the blade can be basically disrupted because of other airflows and also because of the ice that can be put on the blades and stuff too. So that area of the blade actually, it's designed to be clean. It's designed, if you have a dirty vacuum, you can't really suck very well, if that makes any sense. If you don't have a clean blade, that area doesn't help at all. It doesn't get you kind of where you want to be. So having a clean vacuum gives you the best amount of lift and everything else. What up, brother? Hey, thanks for coming by. You are missing out on all the lessons I started with. Nobody cares about the plane lesson. You would not believe that the guy who does care about this plane lesson is saving $20,000 to $25,000 because of the lessons that I'm trying to do. So I understand that it's not actually a plane lesson anyways, it's a helicopter lesson, so you can go somewhere if you want. Anyway, the area of the blade is kind of important, but that's kind of how we're getting that length times width. But we're not always using it. There are certain things that will stop it from being used properly because of ice or things like that. Any questions on this, Bryce? I'm just going to focus on Bryce's kind of questions because he's the one here for that. Can he say walnut for me? I'm not going to say walnut. Okay. So Bryce, yeah. These components matter. Okay, good. Have you been reading the rotorcraft flying, or the helicopter flying handbook, Bryce? Because that's actually a good resource. Anybody who actually wants really good stuff, the FAA produces free books online that are PDFs, and the helicopter flying handbook is actually one of them. Okay, so the revolutions per minute can actually be 0 and it still creates lift. Have you ever seen the video online of the airplane taking off without moving forward? It's basically the airflow itself that's creating lift. But the revolutions are necessary for us to create enough lift to get the whole helicopter off the ground. So there's a video of a helicopter, or not a helicopter, an airplane on YouTube. I recommend you kind of look and kind of read it. It is actually super windy on this airport, and the airplane is basically getting pushed up into the sky just because of the winds it's there. So it can just be the outside wind or the transverse flow that actually is going to create it. Airplanes essentially fly with a transverse flow, and helicopters fly mostly with an induced flow. You just wanted to see me with a hat. That's funny. That's hilarious. So the transverse flow can actually create enough lift to get the blades to move, but the revolutions are actually necessary to get the helicopter to get off the ground. Does that make sense? I'm teaching how to fly helicopters because we need more pilots. I've been teaching for 20 years, so I'm trying to do it. Okay. Yeah, the revolutions per minute is actually very important, though. I'll get to that. Helicopters rotate about 400 feet per minute in their rotation. So I appreciate it. I need a job. Can I start tomorrow? This is going to be a long process to teach you those kind of things. I got a guy who actually knows how to fly helicopters. He is not even in this company yet because he still has to go through the process of learning. There's a lot of things that has to be learned. The last thing we want is you to get, can I get a follow? I'm probably not even going to touch my phone right now, but I'll try to get back to it. If you listen, I bet I tell you, okay. You know, I'm basically down for anybody. If you are a helicopter pilot, then that definitely could be easier. All right. Thank you, Fabian. All right. Let me get to another lesson because we actually got a lot of stuff. And Bryce has taken this serious. He joined a helicopter company so that he could become a helicopter pilot and a mechanic. So he is quite literally trying very hard to make it so that he can actually have a career in this and stuff too. And I know how much it could cost. I'm saving $20,000 to $25,000 on ground alone, trying to get the lessons essentially out. I do want to plan on getting all this on YouTube, all the lessons. But the thing that's hard is it's trying to get it structured. So if you've seen a couple of my videos that are on there, on my feed already, it actually takes a little while to produce just a simple lesson like those things. So, well, thank you. I'm trying to be kind enough because I'm going to retire at some point, so I need somebody else to take over. So, all right. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the induced flow and stuff. Actually, what I'll do is I'll talk about the angle of attack, because that's one of the components. Our main goal today is talking about lift and how lift is produced and everything else. So the angle of attack, or the coefficient of lift, is an aerodynamic angle. So I want you to understand that this is not something you physically can actually create yourself. You're hoping you create, if that makes any sense. Hopefully that makes sense, Bryce. You can do a couple things to try to change it, but you're not guaranteed to actually get the angle of attack. And the angle of attack in itself is something that actually can be detrimental or can hurt you if it's too much. So the coefficient of lift is the angle of attack. I did not pick the name angle of attack because the angle of attack was something that somebody decided that was a great idea for a name, but whatever. So I'm going to look at the tip of the blade essentially, and I'm going to try to draw as much as I can a symmetrical rotor system. But we're going to kind of look at that tip of the blade, because that is the actual airfoil design itself. So an airfoil, again, is anything that creates lift or anything that can create lift or thrust. But it's going to kind of look like that if you're looking at the tip itself. The advancing side, or the side that basically are going into the wind, is called the leading edge. And then there's the trailing edge, which is the side that's going on. And I highly, highly recommend that when you get a chance, go to see that video from Cambridge, because you can actually see the airflow just dotting across. It's actually one of the better videos. I have to figure out a way that I can show those a little bit more, but I don't really know what my limitations are for everything. Good. We need more pilots, so get your pilot's license and then your commercial, because we need them. So the leading edge and the trailing edge of the blade. The area, or excuse me, not the area, the imaginary line that's basically between the leading edge and the trailing edge, this is called a chord line. The chord line is where the center of basically pressure exists. This is where all the aerodynamic forces are happening on the blade itself. So the chord line is kind of an important part or aspect to determine what the angle of attack is actually going to be. So when the when the blade is moving through the air, we're calling that a rotational, basically a plane of rotation. Helicopter controls like brain is wired like that. Good. So you're doing helicopters then for the Louisiana guy. And I'm gonna try to get a drink a little bit because I'm starting to get thirsty. So. All right. So when the engine is running and everything, the aircraft essentially is producing torque that's pushing the blades. So the blades are actually getting pushed along. That blade is moving through what's called a tip path or a plane of rotation. So this tip path plane, tip path plane is essentially the rotation of the blades going through the air. So you kind of see that. The opposite direction is going to be what's called a rotational relative wind. So the airflow that's being produced over the rotor system is the rotational. Don't gift me anything, it's distracting. Thanks, Monica. So the rotational relative wind is the rotation. 1 ton, when you were talking about the RPM and how that kind of factors in, this is directly resulting from that. So the rotational relative wind is the actual thing. Question about angle attack. Do you think Chris Jericho is coming back? Coming back to WWE? No. All right, so the rotational relative wind is the opposite of the tip path plane. So the tip path plane is the movement of the helicopter blades through the air. The air is basically interacting with the blade and giving you a rotational relative wind. So that's part of the velocity. That's where it matters. That rotational relative wind is typically about 400 feet per minute because of the way that it spins. So yeah, the Mosquito is awesome actually. It's I want one so that people can build time. I just can't quite get to there yet. Sorry, Bryce, this may be harder than I thought to try to not get distracted about this kind of stuff. The rotational relative wind is a wind that we are essentially able to control because of the RPM. So it's directly part of the RPM or the rotation of the blades themselves. So when you have other winds that are interacting, you're going to have what's called a resultant relative wind. So when you start to get the airflow that could be coming from below or get airflow that's coming from above, that's going to kind of alter the way the air actually goes over the rotor system itself. And so if you have wind from above, it's going to change where a resultant relative wind is going to occur. So the rotational relative wind is completely opposite direction of the tip path plane. Does that make sense, Bryce? I know that I've been distracted. And I apologize. Everybody in chat should apologize for Bryce because he's the one who's actually trying to learn. and 1 ton because I know he's trying to do. Okay, say that one more time. The rotation of the blade is going this way, right? So you got a tip path plane. So that's the tip path that's basically moving. The opposite is the rotational relative wind. Does that make sense so far? And Fabian, thank you for trying to learn this stuff too. So, is it possible to fly? Yes, it is possible. As long as there's an atmosphere, you can fly anywhere. And I am trying to get people to actually fly on Mars. So, that's actually a goal of mine, is to get the people getting ready to go to Mars to learn. So, yeah, you can make it anywhere there's an atmosphere. So, yeah, the tip path plane, opposite, complete opposite. Now, this is, they're parallel but opposite is going to be the rotational relative wind. We control that with RPM. So, yes, that's true. The Mosquito doesn't need a license. And it's actually, it is honestly a great time builder. It really is a good time builder. It doesn't matter which helicopter you get into as long as you get some time in it. But overall, you do want to, if you want to get a job, you have to start getting used to the helicopters that are a little bit bigger, because the weight and balance changes quite a bit. If you put 4 people into an R-44 helicopter, you're going to get a ton of differences in everything too. So, and it's way more fun taking passengers up. I took Devin from Smarter Every Day up in San Francisco on a flight, and he hung his feet out the door over the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge. So taking passengers is a little more fun. Hopefully that big rig, that you'll get a chance to actually get into a bigger helicopter than that. So, okay, so there is a wind that matters called a resultant relative wind. This is the result of all the airflow kind of combining together. So it's the result of the rotational relative wind and then any wind that's basically coming in. So the resultant relative wind is not something that we can control. We cannot control the resultant relative wind because we can't control the atmosphere. The atmosphere can change. So we could have wind coming from above and below and everything else like that. But that resultant relative wind is actually very important. So wherever that resultant relative wind is coming from, it's usually a combination of the rotational relative wind and whatever's coming from the outside, whatever the universe is going to give us, whatever the atmosphere is going to give us. So let's say the wind or the transverse flow is coming from below. So now that's going to interact with the rotational relative wind and give us a resultant relative wind coming from below. So that is the wind that matters the most, the resultant relative wind. The resultant relative wind can be completely under control of the universe because it's all aerodynamic. It all depends on what the wind is going to be coming from other sources and everything else. If you were to go into the vortices of a big jet, you're going to see a whole change in atmosphere essentially over the rotor system itself, and that resultant relative wind could be all over the place. The resultant relative wind changes along the span, so it's not consistent along the span itself. You're going to have differences in how that's that's resultant relative wind is going to be, because the tips of the blades are typically moving a little bit faster, so you can actually see a little bit more blur because of the rotation on the outside versus the inside. But the resultant relative wind matters. The angle between the resultant relative wind and this chord line, anybody, what is the angle between the chord line and the resultant relative wind? I know there's at least somebody in here that knows some aviation. Thank you, I'm glad it's informative. I am really only scratching the surface on what's informative or what I have to teach and stuff. Bryce, what is the angle between the resultant relative wind, and the chord line. Did I lose Bryce? Chop sound and tip of the blade reaching speed of sound. It's partially true. That is partially true. There's also a little bit of compression because it's flapping. The blades themselves will kind of flap kind of downward too. You didn't lose me. All right, just to know the answer. Ha 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 ha. You haven't been studying. We have something to talk about when you get back to work tomorrow. All right, angle of attack. So that is where you get the angle of attack. You get a combination of all the outside forces winds, the rotational relative wind, and the transverse flow, giving you a resultant relative wind, and then that's going to give you the angle of attack. So the angle between the resultant relative wind and the chord line is the angle of attack. The stall point changes along the span, so it's not exactly the same. So there's differences along the span of where the stall point's going to be. So there is a point where it gets to that too much angle of attack, because the angle of attack is essentially what's going on right here a little bit. At some point you can turn it into a 2x4 and try to fly it, and it's not going to work very well. So if the angle of attack essentially is too much, you get into a stall area. The greater the angle of attack. So let's go back to this lift equation, because that's a good question. This lift equation is how we create lift. To get off the ground, we have to create, for this example, we're using a Bell Jet Ranger helicopter, 4,451 pounds of lift to get off the ground in a Bell Jet Ranger helicopter, because their weight can go up to 4,450 pounds. So the lift, the angle of attack has to be greater in order to create more lift. We actually can change a little bit of that by changing the pitch of the blades mechanically. So the blades are actually controlled by the collective, or the cyclic essentially. But we can change mechanically the actual pitch of the blades. So, you know, that's not changing the other one the same way. But the pitch is what we can actually control. But we can't control angle of attack. Angle of attack is aerodynamic, and it's a result of a ton of other things. We just hope that we have an angle of attack that gives us the lift. The angle of attack in itself can get too great, and that angle of attack essentially can stall, or basically the blades can stall, because that is not going through the air like that. That's not going to create lift. Going through the air like that, it doesn't have any pitch angle at all. That's not going to create lift. But having a little bit of pitch angle in there, that will start to create lift. So to kind of answer that question, the greater the angle of attack to a point will make it easier to take off. The helicopter blades spin at a constant rotation. So there are airplanes that are out there that have a constant rotating propeller, and then it's just changing to the pitch of the blades. So we're just basically a constant rotation all the time. The RPM actually stays the same. Even if we're essentially lose an engine, the RPM actually has to stay the same. So the angle of attack is actually what we're trying to change. Did that make any sense, Fabian, or do you have any questions on what I'm saying? Thank you for that question, though, because that's actually good. Because there is a point where the angle of attack gets too great, and then what you have is a separation, and this basically kind of stall. So there's only so much angle of attack that we can use. If the airflow is coming too much from an angle that's not helpful, we're not going to be able to do it. There's times that we could basically have the helicopter pitch all the way down, and we have enough flow from the top, like from the bottom of a mountain, that is quite literally pushing the helicopter up. And we're having a hard time actually kind of coming down because the air is just so much. So angle of attack is something that's aerodynamic. We're hoping to get enough angle of attack to actually create the lift that we need, we're hoping that it doesn't go beyond that so that we're falling out of the sky. Because this will get, I actually have a really good book that maybe shows some stuff. I can actually show this book. This is a little bit too much, but there's a book called Helicopter Aerodynamics. This actually shows mathematically how the blade's angle of attack and stuff change. It's kind of crazy. Somebody did some weird math, and somebody was way smarter than me for a lot of different stuff. But there was a diagram in here. Aerodynamics of the blades. So you can kind of see that. That actually is the pitch of the angle of attack changing, and tip speed and all that kind of stuff. So the angle of attack is actually changing quite a bit. If there's no wind, if there is absolutely no wind at all, and you're just spinning the helicopter blades, then you have a lot more control of this angle of attack. But if you're moving forward, the atmosphere actually changes some things. And so the angle of attack, though, is important. We have to have angle of attack. If the angle of attack is 0, or if the velocity is 0, the velocity of the wind, not the velocity of the air, the movement of the blades, if the pressure of the air is 0, you're not getting off the ground. Any other questions on that kind of stuff? So I'm going to get back to this part, and that really kind of hurt my finger. Yeah. So the resultant relative wind and the angle between the resultant relative wind and the chord line is going to be that angle of attack. It is really a small angle. It's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of like, 0.001 to like 4 degrees. It doesn't actually have to be that much of an angle. And then it gets to a point where it stalls. But all of the aerodynamic forces that are acting on the blade itself are acting in this center of pressure. And that center of pressure is acting along the chord line. The total aerodynamic force is going to be perpendicular to the resultant relative wind. And that total aerodynamic force is going to have a couple of different components to different things. The upward component is always going to be lift. The forward component is going to be thrust. So in this case, I actually designed this blade so it actually is like an auto rotation. The blades are actually pulling themselves along with the aerodynamic force. It actually doesn't have the same drag essentially to worry about, but it's kind of pulling along. In most cases, the airflow is not coming from above or below. And I've dropped my thing. So I'm going to write that again. In most cases, because the helicopter is sucking air downward, the flow is coming from above. So your induced flow is coming essentially from above. You got your tip path plane, and then you got your rotational relative wind. And then whatever the change is going to be from that flow will give you that resultant relative wind. So it's going to modify that rotation wind, and now you get the result. So this is what it's mostly going to look like for the blades themselves. So the resultant relative wind is kind of coming at from that angle. That center of pressure, the total aerodynamic forces are usually going to be the rear of the blade. Lift is always up. Lift is always up. No matter how you think about any of the other forces and stuff, lift is always up. Thrust can be any direction you want. You can have thrust as completely forward. Airplanes essentially create thrust and they suck themselves forward. But essentially for the helicopter and stuff, we're creating thrust to kind of pull ourselves forward and stuff too. But lift is always up. Does anybody know what that force is now going to be? Because it's no longer in front of the blade. Has anybody looked at the book? See if Price has any answers to this. Not lifting force. Lifting force is always up. But that rear force is something that we have to kind of consider. Starts with a D. Drag. Thank you very much. Thank you, drag. So that's creating essentially drag. Anytime you're trying to fight, the air is actually kind of thick sometimes. Anytime you're getting a flow from above and it's coming down, you're going to get some drag in the system itself. So drag is something that a helicopter always has to deal with in order to create lift to fight gravity efficiently, in order to fight gravity continuously. So how do you think the aircraft is able to spin the rotor system and actually fight the drag that's in the main rotor system? What makes that that blade move through the air? Anybody? What do we have to have in order to fight drag? No, okay. You have to have a push. That push is coming from somewhere. That's an engine. Engines push. So the engine's pushing the blade through the air. So the engine is actually what's fighting the actual drag that's in the system. If it's a really big blade and it's got a lot of angle of attack, there's a lot of drag. And yes, it's exactly the horsepower of the engine is actually what makes this happen. You have to have a really good horsepower, or you have to have a lot of power from the engine in order to push really big blades through the air or have a lot of drag in there. So the engine is actually pushing. That push is going to have essentially something that's called torque, because the torque is actually what's spinning it. It's just like a drill, you're basically creating there. So the engine pushes and creates a torque. That torque, with the blades spinning the way they are, can become a problem. So if the blades are spinning counterclockwise, so blades are spinning counterclockwise, that's correct. Can't really tell. Wait a second. Why does that feel weird? Does that look like it's counterclockwise to you? Because it doesn't. It's weird for me because I'm kind of reversed, so you can actually read the word. Crew chief, awesome. Yeah, vortex, ring state, settlement of power. Those are things that can happen counterclockwise. Thanks. So if the blades are going counterclockwise, torque is what's spinning the blades. So the Newton's third law is going to dictate what's going to happen with Newton's third law. If Newton's third law is making the blade, or the torque is pushing the blades around, that torque, third law, the helicopter is going to go the opposite direction. So now the helicopter is essentially going to spin, and we call this a torque effect. So the engine's pushing the blades, it's creating a ton of torque, and now we're getting a torque effect. So the blades are spinning. So what do we have to stop that helicopter from spinning? Anybody? Where's my pen? Blades are moving this way. Helicopter wants to do that way. So we got tail rotor, thank you. So the tail rotor is also a vacuum, if you didn't know, if you haven't seen my videos. So the tail rotor is actually a vacuum itself, but it's creating thrust. In most cases, it's creating thrust, but that thrust is actually what is... the bands on the tail rotor are actually so that you can actually see the tail rotor better. Because when it's spinning, it spins so fast that the contrast is actually something you can see. If you don't have that contrast, you won't see the tail rotor at all. So it's a safety feature because you don't want to walk into it, and if you can see it, you probably, hopefully, won't walk into it. So that's the reason the bands are actually there. But the tail rotor is actually a vacuum itself. That vacuum is creating a thrust. That thrust is actually sucking the helicopter that direction. So the tail rotor is a vacuum sucking the helicopter. So now we get what's called drift. So I was promising Bryce earlier that we were going to get to lessons about how this helicopter essentially functions and stuff, because my goal is so that he understands the behavior of the aircraft. Because we have basically an engine pushing the blades, we have torque. And it's the torque because it has to fight drag. And then when we create torque, we have a torque effect. And then we have drifts. I haven't flown a gyro, but those are actually kind of like riding with a parachute. It's just pushing and auto rotating. The auto rotation essentially keeps it up in the air. Gyro. It's called a auto gyro Foley. So it's not just a gyro, it's an auto gyro. But drift is a problem. So drift is something that you have to basically combat when you're trying to hover, because if you don't, the vacuum for the tail rotor is going to suck you to the right, and it's going to keep sucking you to the right until you get into the road or into the fence or wherever else like that. So we got to fix and fight drift when we're flying the helicopter. There's a couple different ways that we can do that, but we have to ultimately make the main rotor essentially go against it. So you're constantly fighting the natural direction it wants to move. Yes, because the tail rotor is a vacuum sucking it over. So we have to constantly fight that. We do that because we have to tilt the main rotor the opposite direction. We have to take some of that lift that's fighting gravity and turn it into thrust to fight the tail rotor thrust. So lift is always up. Let's say the helicopter initially is doing 51 pounds of lift. Wow, I have lift written everywhere. How did I get 3 lifts on this? That's crazy. So I got 3 lifts. Anyways, so let's say that lift is creating 51 and essentially to keep us fighting gravity because the weight of the helicopter is pulling down. If we have to take some of that lift away and fight the tendency of the helicopter, or the translating tendency of the helicopter, which is called drift, we have to produce a little bit of thrust that way. Well, if we're taking some away from here, now the helicopter is going to descend. So now we're only creating, if we tilt the rotor only, we have 44, let's say 45 pounds that's fighting gravity. Gravity's going to win if we're 44.50. No matter how much we want to fight gravity, it's going to win if we don't produce enough lift. Doesn't matter. But we have to create enough thrust to fight the tail rotor, because the tail rotor actually has to produce a lot of thrust. If the torque is higher or the torque is more, you have to produce more and more thrust. And to get leverage, sometimes that means the tail rotor has to go very far away. You actually have to be like a Black Hawk helicopter. There's so much torque involved that Black Hawk helicopter is essentially got a tail rotor super far away. It's so far away, it actually has to produce a little bit of lift to keep itself off the ground because it's so heavy. But that's kind of beside the point. Anyways, when you have thrust from the tail rotor trying to drag you over in the translating tendency, or the tendency for the helicopter to move, let's say we took away some of that lift to create some of that thrust, because the tail rotor thrust is, what's the math, 51, so that would be 6, let's say 6 pounds. Let's say the tail rotor is making 6 pounds of thrust or vacuum to be able to suck it. I'm glad that this information is kind of good to know. So the tail rotor, let's say it's just creating 6 pounds of anti-torque, or basically it's fighting the torque, anti-torque. The pedals themselves are actually designed to be fighting torque, and it's called anti-torque. But so now we're taking away 6 pounds of the lift that we were typically creating to basically create thrust to fight that drift. So the helicopter, if I don't do anything at all, it's going to fall down. Gravity wins. Gravity always wins, no matter how we do it, if we don't create enough lift to fight it. If I'm turning sideways, I am not creating enough lift to fight gravity. I have to create gravity, or I have to create lift by there. I'm going to get to the lag phase. That's not something I need to talk about yet, because that's not something, we only have to deal with the gyroscopic precession later, so I'll get to that later. So I have to increase something in order to get this to stay off the ground, or to get it to go back up in the sky. I have to increase this lift back up to the value that allows me to fight gravity. So the way that I have to do that is actually increase the amount of pitch angle of the blades, increase the angle of attack, and that's going to kind of fight gravity. So it's a constant change in kind of fight, because anytime I am changing the angle of attack, I'm actually increasing drag, which now means more torque, which now needs the tail rotor needs more work, and then I have to kind of do it. But it's not as hard to actually combat the helicopter stuff, or combat this drift, because it's not a lot. It doesn't take much of the main rotor to actually keep the helicopter from moving over. But we do have to fight gravity all the time. The RPM of the engine is controlled essentially with the throttle. And the RPM of the engine is usually what's pushing the blades. So you will have a collective that will actually have the ability to change the RPM of the engine itself. I am going to take a drink. I'm starting to feel like my voice is dying. But thank you for sharing it. Holy cow, thank you for following. I've been flying for 20 years. If you haven't been on this for a little bit, ask me anything you want. I'm trying to teach some lessons here. Bryce, if there are any questions so far? Oh, man. Yeah. Okay. Torque effect and torque is actually a pretty big deal. We have to fight it all the time. And if we don't fight torque, we allow torque to win. The helicopter, when it is turning basically with the blades themselves, you're basically sucking more with the tail rotor, and that's pulling the blades and fighting essentially torque all the way. You're beating torque when you go to do a left pedal turn with a counterclockwise rotation. If you want to turn to the right, you let torque win. You actually allow torque to win. You can spin pretty quickly, and you can go really, really, really fast going the opposite direction of the torque, but We want to try to control what we're trying to do by limiting essentially how fast we're moving. If the helicopter starts to spin to the right uncontrolled, you have to get rid of torque. As soon as you get rid of torque, the helicopter will stop. I was practicing that when I was doing my CFI training, and I quite literally, we got so dizzy because we were just spinning. But as soon as you get rid of torque, the helicopter just stops. Every movie gets it wrong. Anytime the tail rotor goes off, they're still spinning. The helicopter pilots are not doing the proper reaction to that spin. They need to get rid of the torque. If they get rid of the torque, they will actually stop the spin. You're going to let gravity win because you're not going to have enough to keep pushing the blades and stuff, and you're not going to have enough to keep fighting gravity, because you're going to have to lower the collective, or you're going to have to reduce throttle. Those are the two ways that you can reduce torque. Lowering the collective reduces the angle of attack, or the pitch angle typically, and then you're also reducing the amount of torque that's necessary. If you reduce the throttle, you're also reducing the torque in the actual rotor system itself. So there's two ways essentially to change that torque value, and that's collective or throttle. I'm getting a little bit far off topic and stuff, or some stuff, but anyway. Is there any questions that I can answer right now as I try to get myself an energy drink, because I'm getting to the point where I've been on it for, I had to work today, normal people. I have people who I'm teaching advanced stuff right now that are actually trying to get a real job in helicopters. I'm the director of training for Heli Inc. Thank you, Spartan. And so I basically am teaching some of these people who are already pilots how to fly. And I've been doing that all day. Is there any questions I can answer that would help you guys with any of the stuff? I know that probably some people came in a little late. I can always start this lesson over, but Bryce will get mad because I'm probably going to never touch on everything I need to do. So I need a sign that says free lessons. That's going to be the easiest thing. Is there anything like an ideal angle of attack? The one that gets the job done, and the one that doesn't go too far. And so it really is it's a play. We just want gravity. The most advantage that we can get is if we have an upward flow, because that's going to increase the angle of attack, but also we can reduce our power so that we can avoid the stall of the blades. So there's not really an ideal angle of attack. We are really just trying to get the thing that fights gravity. That's a good question, though. We can't do too much of an angle attack. We want to have a little less board through the sky and more blade through the sky. So, all right, I'm going to talk about some characteristics of the helicopter, because we already talked about this kind of stuff. There are 3 controls in the helicopter, but you only really have to worry about one. And that's the thing that I always try to show people when they're hovering. If anybody in the chat has ever been scuba diving, this will make sense. A helicopter is basically going to have something that's like a buoyancy compensator. You're setting essentially the buoyancy of the air, or the buoyancy of the aircraft, so that it doesn't fall down or float up towards the surface. This is an ocean of air that we're actually in. Believe it or not, you guys are all crabs. You guys are bottom feeders. Everybody's stuck on the ground. You guys are all basically there. We're all bottom feeders. The birds are the fish. And when we're up in the air and we're flying, we're creating enough lift to fight gravity and getting us off the ground. But we're basically swimming. And so we can use the forces to equalize everything, and so that we don't have to move essentially too much. We don't have to try to overcorrect things. The collective is our buoyancy compensator. Did any scuba divers understand the reference to a buoyancy compensator? So a buoyancy compensator, I know, Bryce, have you been scuba diving? Have you ever tried that? Or has anybody been scuba diving? Negative. Okay. Anybody? Any scuba divers out here? Because it's going to help. It's going to help quite a bit. I love scuba diving. I've actually been scuba diving. I was open water certified, so it's a little bit of fun. But helicopter has basically a system that basically creates kind of a buoyancy compensator. Believe it or not, when you're scuba diving, you're going to wear a weight belt. That doesn't make any sense because the weight belt is going to pull you down to the bottom of the ocean. You're just going to sink. You're just going to go right down to the bottom. Because you have to wear a weight belt because your body is naturally more buoyant than salt water or water in general. So you actually have to have something that's pulling you down. You have to have a weight that's pulling you down to the ground and stuff. Well, so while you're basically in training for this, they go over things called a buoyancy compensator. It's a vest that you wear, and what you're doing is actually adding air to the vest so that you can be neutrally buoyant in the water. Basically, you're fighting the force that's pulling you down, and you're trying to get neutrally buoyant in there. If you ever go scuba diving, you don't want to make a lot of adjustments to it because you'll end up doing this in the water. You'll end up going up and down. Sometimes you go like this, like crazy. So when people are first starting off in scuba diving, they end up going really high and really low. So you want to be basically neutral, and so that you don't have to do that. The collective is the buoyancy compensator. So there's some controls. There's basically 3 controls that are working in the helicopter. This is something that you should have heard in your intro flight, Bryce. And I'm going to just make the controls look like R44 controls, just so you guys are aware. So there are 3 controls in the helicopter. You have a cyclic that looks super funky in the R44, R22, R66. That's designed so that people can actually get in and out of the helicopter, and it's a little easier to get in and out of the helicopter. This is actually what's moving for the cyclic itself. You're actually controlling the direction of essentially hoping you're controlling the direction of the rotor disc with the cyclic. You don't always get the best results, or you don't always get the results you want with the cyclic, and I'll talk about that in a second. And then you have the pedals. The pedals are the anti-torque pedals. So they are anti-torque because they're fighting the engine torque that's spinning the blades or pushing the blades along. Then you have a collective. So the collective is what we're going to talk about. So the collective is a lever. All it is, in the easiest way I can kind of give you, the collective is the strength of the vacuum. So if you pull up on the collective, the vacuum gets stronger. If you lower the collective, the vacuum gets weaker. If you change the throttle, if you go thumb up, the vacuum gets stronger because you're increasing RPM. If you thumb down, the vacuum gets weaker. So the collective directly controls essentially how much we're fighting gravity, how much we're actually fighting the gravity that's pulling us down to the ground. So if we pull up on the collective, we're increasing the pitch angle of the blades. It's a mechanical linkage that actually changes the pitch angle. We hope we get an angle of attack. Most likely we will. Most cases we'll actually get an angle of attack that works, and then we'll go up and fly and get above the ground. The collective has basically a throttle. It's a kind of like a twist grip for a motorcycle that increases or decreases the throttle, or actually increases or decreases the engine RPM. So that's actually going to directly increase and decrease that RPM. Velocity is what matters the most, right? For the lift equation. So we're changing the pitch with that's hopefully changing the angle of attack with the collective, and then we're changing the velocity with the throttle, essentially. There is a governor that actually is in most helicopters that actually keeps the RPM at a specific range and a specific speed. That governor is very helpful, but has to work. Wanted to fly an Apache, but the night vision wouldn't have messed me up, and I'm too low. I'm sorry. I flew Blackhawks. I know a lot of Apache guys because I was in Utah National Guard, and in West Jordan they have an Apache group there. So you can still learn if you're military because they have VA benefits that may still apply. I don't know what you've used for the VA benefits, but there are 141 schools and VA benefits. If you still want to learn, I don't know how old you are. I highly recommend that you follow the channel so I can teach you a little bit about this stuff. And then if you actually want to learn how to fly helicopters in general, 56 is still not that old. I taught a guy who is close to your age. He actually bought a helicopter because he wanted to learn how to fly, and now he's flying his own helicopter all over the place. You know, so you're not that old, or you're not old enough to basically disqualify yourself from trying to do it. If you want to learn how to do it, you can definitely do that. So I'm going to get back to the lesson a little bit. Okay, I'm sure Bryce, you're still with me, Bryce? I've got 2,000 likes on this thing. That's awesome. Thank you, guys. I'm not trying to make money on this, to be honest. I'm trying to just get the information out and hopefully get people interested in flying helicopters because the world needs helicopter pilots. We're running out. We're getting there's a huge shortage. Okay, so the cyclic is a little more complicated, so I'm not going to get too far into it right now. Cyclic. I can't, okay. Spell cyclic for me. Cyclic. I'm not even spelling correctly today. Cyclic. Anyway, cyclic. Do you know how you say a word too many times and it starts to come up funny? Yeah, that's what's happening now. So that's the cyclic. And then they got the pedals, which are anti-torque, and the collective. The collective is what I was talking about before I read the comment. That's going to have the most interaction with the lift ability because the collective is changing the pitch angle of the blades. That's basically going to change the angle of attack, hopefully. Then you're going to change the velocity with the throttle. But for the most part, though, once you get the correct amount of lift, you don't need to mess around anymore. You don't have to do anything else. So what I typically teach is you go to a 10-foot hover. You set the power so that you're buoyant for a 10-foot hover above the ground. You don't need to mess with the collective anymore. You don't have to change it. You only have to change the collective or the buoyancy compensator if you're trying to climb or descend. And basically, though, if you leave the collective alone during the whole time that you're flying, you can actually take off. You could fly the whole world around and never change the collective at all. You could do a run-on landing similar to an airplane. So that depends on the thing. So I'll answer your question in a little bit. But the collective is your buoyancy compensator. So what you're doing is essentially you're setting the buoyancy that you want. Well, now when you're setting the buoyancy that you want, you're setting the collective position, you're essentially setting the amount of torque that's going to be involved. So now you can set your pedals to fight the torque. You can hover without messing with the collective or the pedals and just fly the helicopter with the cyclic. So before I lose my train of thought, I will get to that point about that answer. Helicopters, when they're hovering, as long as you don't mess with their collective and pedals, all you're doing is moving the cyclic around. Helicopters hover like a drunk person. So they will wobble all the time. And if you ever watch a video of a drunk person, they will just kind of wobble, but they won't fall over. Helicopters have a natural tendency to just kind of sit there and wobble, and you just kind of let it happen. I don't have to make any changes and stuff. The wobble is kind of a natural reaction to some of the winds that are kind of going around the helicopter. It's when the helicopter starts to lean, or when the person starts to lean, that you start to go in some places and get in directions. So ultimately, the lean is what's causing that movement. So the helicopter, if you're gotta imagine, you have to essentially control the helicopter. As long as you keep the collective and pedals pretty much where they are, you can just control the helicopter like you control a drunk person that's walking to their car. If they start to lean forward, you got to pull kind of back on the shirt and kind of push back on the shirt, and you kind of fix it where you're kind of doing it. I'll practice that with you, Bryce, when you get a chance, kind of practice the actual maneuver itself. If you can practice that in person, and if you guys are watching, if you practice controlling a drunk person to your car, you're actually practicing how to hover. If you don't have a drunk person, a baby works just the same, because babies are actually very similar to that. Does that analogy in any way, shape, or form make sense? And I'll answer your question real quick while somebody's seeing if there's any questions on that. You need about 40 hours to get a helicopter, and private pilot's license the same, but you do have an additional problem with trying to be, well, 40 hours is kind of the, you're already an airplane pilot, so you're trying to get that adjustment. Ultimately, it's to proficiency, and it's a little harder to hover and get there than an airplane and stuff, but it's really ultimately proficiency to get an airplane to helicopter transition, but you typically have to have about 20 hours to do it. So yeah, now with this drunk person, it can be really drunk, like absolutely drunk, like, oh, okay, I'm gonna do whatever. And so you flew a Harrier, it'll be harder and easier. I think it'll be easier, honestly. I think you'll have no problems whatsoever. I can talk more about that later, El Jefe. I'm going to try to get this lesson and stuff, because Bryce is actually, he's 18 years old. He is learning how to fly helicopters for the first time. I'm trying to get through. No, it's okay. You don't have to apologize. My goal is essentially to build pilots, and there's a couple of people in there right now that are actually trying to get through the lesson, ultimately, so that they can try to get that goal as well. I would love to talk about all this kind of stuff, and I can get through, do lessons directly again. I'll go live for whoever wants to, and I can kind of dictate those lessons to whatever. I do consulting as well, so I'm not just here to like help them learn the knowledge and stuff, but at the consulting side of things. So there's another question. At 55, I'm old, take a class. Can I get a job? So yes and kind of no in some ways. It depends on the person, and actually it would be easier for you to get a helicopter license and then go on your own and actually do the work on your own and actually start your own business than trying to get a job. The problem is with the industry that the jobs usually have an age of retirement, some things like that. But if you have your own helicopter, you can actually just do your own thing. You don't have to worry about a job actually doing it. As long as you can have a medical and keep a medical, you could teach ground or flying for your whole life. The medical is what dictates you to be able to fly when you're there. Oh, I won't get to the thing for the slackline, El Jefe. That's there's a lot of things that I won't really talk about, and that's what the reason why is because we can't really know what's going on inside the helicopter specifically. So I can't really answer about accidents because I really don't know what was actually in the helicopter. I can have some conjecture. I can have some theories of what's happened. I can tell you exactly what I think, but that's not always the case. There's a lot of distractions that could have been a factor for that slackline incident. It is tragic. Definitely rest in peace for those people who died. It should have been avoided completely. They should have been aware of the obstacles. And yeah. Okay, back to the lesson, please. All right. Sorry, guys. I apologize. This is, again, the first feed. This is the first time I've ever been live at all, trying to get through this stuff. So when these comments come up and they get distracting, it's kind of like, man, I don't even know. But I'll get to the lesson. Okay, so drunk people are so crazy. All right. So when you're hovering, the drunk person can get really kind of like just happy drunk, like, oh yeah, I'm okay. And then they can get really drunk. And then drunk people are susceptible to any outside force or any kind of influence. So the wind and stuff is also going to be a factor for that drunk person. So you can just imagine this drunk person just kind of wobbling, and then a wind kind of pushes them and they just start to go somewhere. And then drunk people essentially will do it. Now the thing is, the longer that the drunk person leans, if you ever watch the videos for people, the faster they're gonna go. So if you watch those videos, they accelerate faster, and the helicopter uses that lean to move the direction they want and to actually fly. So moving forward, we're actually leaning forward the whole entire helicopter and kind of taking off to go away from the earth and fly a little bit around the world and whatever. But the lean is something that we actually have to combat, because if they start to lean, we actually have to start to pull on the shirt and try to get them back in place. The wind can also kind of play around with the tail rotor as well, because the tail rotor is creating essentially anti-torque, and if it's not really effective because of the way the airflow is going over there, that tail rotor can be affected by the velocity and the angle of attack and everything changing quite a bit. So you're now playing with the pedals, trying to keep the heading of the person while they're leaning, trying to do the drunk thing. And I'll get to how to kind of combat that lean and how to kind of prevent those kind of things in a second. But it's really not hard to fly a helicopter at night. So one of the things that I learned is I've been flying for 20 years. I had a student who came to me who he could only fly at night. He was only essentially, he was working during the day, and so at night we were doing ground school, and then later on he came in and then we ended up flying. When he went out, because I taught him how the helicopter kind of operates and kind of give him that perspective of a drunk person and everything else like that, he was hovering the first hour. So the first hour of flight, which is kind of unheard of. Anybody who's been a helicopter pilot or even tried a helicopter, the first hour, it's surprising that you could actually have somebody do it. So I found out that when you're flying in a helicopter at night, there's less distractions. There's less wind. You can have a drunk person that actually is not getting tossed around by the wind around, but you also have a reference point that helps. The landing light becomes basically a target on the ground. So you can actually use that. If the landing light gets smaller, you're going forward. If the landing light gets bigger, you're going backwards. So you can actually get a lot better training if you fly at night. A lot of flight schools that are out there, and this is just some things that I think need to change, they don't teach people how to hover at night. They teach them during the day. And I think that's actually probably a missed opportunity, because a lot of people will miss out on how to hover a lot quicker at night. So, yeah, so 8 o'clock at my time. I'm going to answer a couple questions. Let's see, because I got to get back to this lesson. But too old to start is not, no. If you really want to fly, don't give up on a dream for that kind of stuff. You can always learn how to fly and then teach your next generation pilots. You can teach your kids how to fly. So there's no wrong answers when you start, because you can still pass that information on and you can still enjoy the flying on your own. So don't give it up just for 53 years old. There's a guy who just got his private pilot's license not too long ago. If you want to take passengers, you need a medical certificate. Does that help you, ICU? Does that make any sense? So, got a few more minutes. I do too. I got to work tomorrow. You're welcome. Yeah, I think I'm probably running out of steam. How about getting enrolled in training in school? So I am training. I actually can give you credit for ground school if you want to hear it. So you're kind of enrolled just by coming by the feed. But for flying, it's a little, you can find a flight school that's local. I teach out of St. Louis, Missouri. But there's flight schools all over the United States. Some of them are not very good. There's ones I could definitely tell you to steer away with or away from, but to get enrolled in a school, you just have to find the thing that's the easiest one for you to kind of to work with. If you don't mind traveling, you can come out of St. Louis, but ultimately all you have to do is try to not interrupt me too much on my lessons, and then I can teach everything. But also there is quite a bit of investment involved when it comes to learning how to fly, and that's something that most people have to consider. You only really can get along with just a private pilot's license. You don't need to have a commercial license. A commercial license by itself is basically the ability to take passengers for hire, but a private pilot's license, you can get pretty much, you can go everywhere. You can go around the world with a private pilot's license. So, did that answer your question, Cold Beer? Thanks for the question. I'm definitely appreciating all this, people looking through and checking by and all that kind of stuff. You guys are supporting Bryce, who's trying to learn how to do some stuff. My biggest thing right now is my throat's dry. I've been talking for 2 hours now, almost. Is it really? Yeah, 2 hours. Thank you for the follow. Hopefully you guys are checking out some of my page. My page is going to have lessons that are going to be in there that are going to be simple, hopefully easily digestible. That's the way I look at it. Everything else. I want to talk about one thing before we go, because I know, Bryce, you're running out of time. How much time do you have, Bryce? There is financial assistance for schooling, but you have to usually go to school or be enrolled with a college in conjunction with that. And then what you have to do is essentially get a student loan for it. 10 minutes or so. Okay, so before Bryce leaves, because he's kind of my target audience for tonight, if you guys want me to go specifically on a live for you, I don't care. I can get on when the time is working for both of us, and I can just kind of go through any training you guys want to start with if you have more advanced training than basic stuff and everything else. Bryce has got about 10 more minutes, so I'm going to just kind of talk a little bit more about some things. There's a tendency in the helicopter world to use aggression, or the word aggression, and things. You don't want to be aggressive with a helicopter. It's a drunk person, but it's a person. So, like, if that makes any sense. A drunk person is still something that you want to respect, and you don't want to push too hard and be aggressive and basically knock them over. You don't want to get them going the direction. It's a common tendency that if you push too hard the helicopter, they're going to lean and they're going to start to move themselves. To be able to control the helicopter, you got to imagine you're standing behind the drunk person. So the helicopter, it typically has a shoulder and head, so it kind of helps you to remember, or basically know what the drunk person is, kind of thing. But it's kind of a small head. The drunk person, has shoulders, right? And the drunk person has a head. The shoulders are basically the dashboard of the helicopter. The head is usually in an R-44. It has the compass. The goal of a helicopter pilot is to manage the head and the shoulders of the helicopter, essentially this drunk person. So the head is going to sit when you're just sitting there in a hover and not going pretty much anywhere at all. It's going to sit pretty close to the horizon line. And if you're short, I may get basically another marker, and I may draw on there like another head for you or something. But the compass does work for kind of a head. So you got to kind of imagine that you're standing behind this person. If the head and the shoulders start going down on the horizon, that is like me leaning that way. So how do you fix it? You got to pull the head and shoulders back. But you don't want to overpull, because then they go the opposite direction. I have about 3,000 and some odd flight hours, and I stopped counting, so I don't really know how many flight hours I have, but thanks for the question. So if the helicopter head and shoulders get closer to that horizon or above that horizon, it's like they're leaning back, you know, kind of on top of you or something. So you got to push them forward. Now I want you to imagine that the cyclic is very similar to the back of my shirt. I can move my shirt and it's not going to really do anything. I kind of have to pull until it goes. I have to kind of push until it goes. There's a little bit of a lag in how it actually does things. I love teaching how to fly because I've been teaching it for 20 years. So that's what got me interested in actually flying and teaching. I found different ways and analogies. I did fly Blackhawks, so I know it's great. I love the helicopter. Let me get back to the lesson because Bryce only got about 10 more minutes. I want to try to talk about the drunk person because the drunk person is helpful. Bryce, when you get here, I'm going to go through and we're going to practice controlling the drunk person and making, yeah, it's not, so yeah, but it's there, it's what made it really, really hard. It's the truth. Because it's kind of, there's a delay in how the drunk person reacts, if that makes any sense. But the goal is to keep the head on the horizon and the shoulders essentially level. So if you're, and we'll, man, you had to say that because the lag is really, really, makes it really kind of hard and stuff. What I tried to say to fix that is don't pull, punch. Because basically what's going to happen is if you punch, you're getting in both motions instead of just push. So if they're not going the way you want to, you kind of push, you know, punch them in the direction you want to go. That's going to kind of help fixing some of the lag and kind of prevent you from over controlling it. Because the last thing you want to do is I'm pulling, and pulling, now it's going to go. I'm pulling, now I'm going to go. But you're only standing behind, so obviously the front doesn't really correlate and stuff, but we're going to practice that drunk person kind of thing before you actually fly helicopters. I highly recommend anybody who's trying to learn how to fly to practice this drunk technique or drunk person control kind of thing before you get into the helicopter, because it's actually going to help you to actually hover. The helicopter is completely different and different person from you. Drunk people are not you, so the helicopter is completely this, you know, a different person. The attitude of the helicopter can stay the same. So let's say that the attitude of the helicopter is on the horizon, the shoulders are nice and level and everything else like that, and the head is on the horizon. It doesn't matter what I do. I can go like this, and it's not going to change the attitude of the helicopter. I can go like this, and it's not going to change the attitude of the helicopter. The drunk person is separate from you, so you actually have to control the drunk person and not control you. I can lean forward on the cyclic, I can lean back on the cyclic, I can lean forward on the shirt, and I can lean back on the shirt. And as long as I keep the position of the helicopter in the same position, I'm going to do that. So that's my last lesson for Bryce tonight. Is there any questions I can have? Slightly expensive. Here's the problem with the flight training more expensive than fixed wing. It depends on the goal that you have. The helicopter private pilot's license would probably be more expensive than the fixed wing, but the helicopter commercial license requires less hours than the fixed wing, so they're actually even themselves out a little bit. The more expensive helicopter that you're flying, the more expensive it becomes. The more weight that you want to carry for lift, the more expensive it becomes. And same thing with fixed wing though. So if you want a commercial license, a helicopter is actually the way to go because your investment pays off a little bit differently and a little bit better because you don't need as many hours. You need 150 hours. If you're in the United States, you need 150 hours to get a commercial license. For a fixed wing, you need 250 hours. So that's where it adds up for a fixed wing side. Is there any more questions? Thank you for the heart me. Appreciate it, Mario. And thank you for the follow as well. So if you have an instrument rating fixed wing, will it need to start from scratch? No, it's it's almost the exact same thing. Instrument rating for helicopters is it's all procedures. So if you know the procedures, there's no difference. The only thing you have to know is kind of some of the emergency procedures, which are slightly different. Because if you have an engine failure with a helicopter, you're kind of having a harder time basically get it to the ground if it's in instrument conditions. The glide for an airplane can go a little bit farther. Oh, I should mention, you guys, a helicopter falls like a person with a parachute on. And if you... Oh man, I love auto rotations. Auto rotations are great because it creates enough drag essentially to stop the airflow or stop the helicopter from falling straight down. Gravity is an acceleration force. So gravity will pull you down to the ground and it gets you faster and faster and faster till you get to the ground. The helicopter itself, though, the blades act like a parachute. So for the instrument side of things, it's actually better in some ways because you're not going super fast forward to keep your airspeed and stuff and then crash into trees. I can go straight down if I had to. But the instrument rating from fixed wing is the same. It's almost exactly the same. I just got in here how long to get a commercial license. Okay, it took me 6 months to go from 0 hours, no flight time at all, to a CFII where I was actually teaching people. It all depends on the motivation, time that you want to put in, and it's an investment. Becoming a helicopter pilot is a little bit becoming like a doctor. There is a period of time that you're going to have a residency. The residency is kind of the time that you're learning what kind of career you want to go into. Hey, Bryce, real quick, are you going to be gone? Are you to leave? Because I think I'm just going to answer some questions on these people that are trying to do everything. Maybe. Bryce is a awesome kid. Yeah, all right, good. He's got to work tomorrow. I got to work tomorrow too. But Bryce is learning how to fly. That's where this kind of started a little bit. I'm trying to save money. For people, it is about $20,000 to $25,000 that most schools will charge you for ground training. If you went to the college, or if you went to a college for the actual aviation degree program, you're paying for the college course and for ground, essentially. So I'm actually... I'm teaching, if you were to learn everything that I teach, if you were to go all the way up to a flight instructor position, that is 52 credit hours at some colleges. So for the most part, it could cost a lot of money, and this is the easiest way I can shorten the time and expense and stuff. There is no age cap. There's no age cap at all. It's just what your goal is and who you can actually take with you. If you can still get a medical license or a certificate, you can fly your entire life. I know guys who I've been flying with in the medical industry that are way older than me, and they are still flying, teaching and everything else like that. There's no age gap or cap. You can keep flying. Now, getting a job or the ability to get a job is depending on the actual company that you're working for. So the helicopter company that I work for, you're pretty much going to try to retire around 70. But I can still teach all year long, all day long, everything else. So thoughts on 141 or 61? GI Bill. Okay, use the GI Bill if you can. Don't worry about the Part 61 stuff. If you can use the GI Bill, it's a benefit. And I was military, so I understand. Thank you for the service and stuff. The GI Bill benefit is going to save you a lot of money. The one thing about the 141 is it's structured. So you have to keep up, you have to do everything. The 61 is beneficial if you want to complete it quick. So if you really want to complete the actual flight training alone, 61 is the only way that you can actually do it. What about the VR and E? VR and E. I'm actually not sure VR. Okay. Oh, are you talking about the VR equipment and stuff like that, or anything else? Hey, Bryce, thank you so much. I hope that you learned a little bit. It's also thanks for being the test subject on this kind of thing. I was a pilot in the military so I was in the military for about 8 years, and I was a pilot for about half of that time. I flew Blackhawks in the military over in Afghanistan. So, okay. I'm actually not familiar with that VR and E. Veterans, I don't know what the acronym is. Maybe I haven't heard that acronym before. That's probably the problem. So, yeah. Do whatever you can with the military paying for it, because honestly, you may be, I'll tell you that the 141 does have a structure. It's going to take you a little longer to get through. But honestly, vocational rehab. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, good. Okay, I understand now. Yeah, use whatever you can for the military. Take advantage of everything. Save some money. Keep following here on this thing, because I'm going to teach everything I can. And then, yeah, that's going to save you some money too. A few hours of fixed wing. Just got out of the Army a couple days ago, Apache mechanic. I was a Black Hawk mechanic before I became a pilot. So that's how I changed my life a little bit. I was actually a pilot before I joined the military though, so it made it easier to do it. But mechanics side's way good too. We actually need mechanics just as well. World needs pilots and mechanics. I should put that up here. And mechanics. So we need those too. We need mechanics as well. Few hours of fixed wing. Trying out the figure. Okay, so knowledge is knowledge is knowledge is knowledge. Physics still matters no matter where you go. The stuff that with helicopters, the lift equation, which is missing in 1/2 because I ended up erasing it. Knowledge is knowledge is knowledge is knowledge. Fixed wing is helpful in some ways because it is a little cheaper, but again, you need 250 hours for commercial versus 150 hours in a helicopter. So you're kind of weighing those benefits and everything else. Is there any other questions I can answer for you? It looks like I'm dropping some people. 25 years of service, thank you. Mechanic impending retirement, looking for another avenue. Just whatever your dream can be, just follow it. Because honestly, the longer you wait, time goes by. And anything you learn, try to teach the next generation. Teach your kids, teach your grandkids. The guy that I've been teaching in his R44, he's an old guy. He's got kids and he's got grandkids. And so he's just, working that way kind of stuff. So, yeah. Well, thank you. Keep in touch. I'll definitely come back. You're welcome. And I'm trying, this is the first time that I've streamed. So, guys, you're breaking my cherry a little bit with this stuff because I am not, a streamer generally by nature. But generally speaking, I'm a teacher. I've been teaching. I started teaching when I was 14, actually, church actually for the most part. So I learned a little bit about how to teach and how to get through this kind of stuff. And then I use a lot of analogies for a lot of different things. You're welcome. Is there anything else that you guys, Bryce is gone, but if you guys want to learn anything else or if you guys have any questions, I highly recommend if you're trying to learn how to fly helicopters, go to the Helicopter Flying Handbook. It's a PDF. It's free. It's a government, basically documents, so it's all free. And it's honestly, oh my goodness, it's awesome. It's such a good book. Bryce has that book, so he already kind of knew some things. He didn't know all the stuff I was hoping he would know. I was a little disappointed he didn't read so much. But the Helicopter Flying Handbook is free PDF on the FAA website. There is also an airplane flying handbook for anybody who's actually an airplane person that wants to do that. But the world does need helicopter pilots, so I am trying to build helicopters, but we also need airplane pilots. Okay, you guys want stories about helicopter stuff? If you guys saw my basically my profile at all, you probably knew I flew somebody kind of famous and things. And maybe you're just not interested, I don't know. But schools to recommend. Okay, that depends on where you are, and that really is tough questions to recommend schools. I would need to know where you are. You can DM me if you want. there's some research that you want to have in place. There are some schools that are great, and there's some that will rip you off significantly. The one type of thing for this industry is that schools actually are the most stable income than any other industry out there. So a lot of times schools will kind of take advantage of certain things. Your ignorance is bliss kind of things. I went to a school that was actually more expensive than it needed to. There was 8 hours a day of ground school when the weather was bad. There's some red flags that you kind of have to kind of avoid. I would have to get you into a bigger discussion for what schools to recommend. I have a school. I'm a flight instructor, but you have to come out to St. Louis in order to do it. So I do have a pilot house that I'm actually developing. It's going to be kind of a dormitory that people can actually stay in while they're here. Try to get some flight training. I train in the R-44, which is a little more expensive helicopter, but it's more stable. So there's some benefits to stability versus the smaller helicopters that are cheap like an R-22 or a gimbal. The gimbal is a great helicopter, but you won't get a job afterwards if that's your goal. Did that answer any question, King O'Cali? If I'm saying that correctly. I'm gonna get a drink. Holy cow. Anything you guys want to know a little bit more about me? Hello, Justin. You just missed the tail end of the lessons. School that takes the GI Bill is going to be something you have to Google. My school does not have the GI Bill, unfortunately, because so my thing is I'm trying to help another flight school turn themselves into a 141 program potentially. There's benefits to being a Part 61 because I can get somebody done more flexibility, more rapidly if I need to. I wish that I could. I was down in Arizona. I was trying to actually create a crop dusting program that would teach people how to do crop dusting using the GI Bill. If they were already a pilot, they could just get their, typically you can get a commercial license through the military, or not, it's a test out basically from the military, but then they could just get a class. I wish that it had the GI Bill. But utilize it if you have it. Flight time is flight time. It doesn't matter if you get the military to pay for any of the flight time at all. It is worth it because flight time is great. It's flight time. Welcome, Corey. You just missed it. A couple lessons and stuff. I'm going to step away so people can kind of do everything. You're welcome. We need pilots. We need helicopters. I don't need to talk about area right now. Oh, but I love flying. I'll tell you some of the best experiences I have. If you guys want story time, you have to say yes because I'm gonna. I don't know. I have some fun stories. So, Happy New Year! Yes, you're welcome. I am going to try to go live. I got to figure out my schedule. This is the first time I've ever done it. So Corey says yes for stories. All right, so Mark Zuckerberg is somebody everybody knows. I was flying in California for a couple years, did some charters and things like that. That is why I'm Captain Justin. But generally speaking, it was fun because the helicopter landed. I went out because I was kind of the second command of this Gusta 109 Grand, beautiful aircraft. I opened the door and I see this woman that I recognized right off the bat. And I was like, holy cow. So they come in and Mark comes out and they load up and we took him up to find a cabin. And I can't talk about where, but it's pretty fun. I will say that the best celebrity that I've ever met, and if he ever sees this stream, is Gordon Ramsay. Because Gordon Ramsay was phenomenal. He is so nice. He has a personality, of course, that's online. That's like a dick to people that are older than 12, I guess. But for the most, or not older than 12, he's probably pretty good to anybody who's a young adult. But he's awesome. He's a great guy. I've done EMS. I've been a check airman for EMS company. I flew About 200 of missions, a little more than 225-ish missions in EMS. I flew Blackhawks in the military. I do photography as well, so if you guys see my feed, you'll see like some pictures that I've taken. Funny story. Yeah, I gotta get back. I'm way off topic. So, I landed at a bank once and had 7 cop cars come and try to see what was going on. I didn't get in trouble, but I had 7 cop cars come. They all kind of came in, staggered different times and all those things, including the chief inspector. So the chief inspector comes up and he's like, hey, so why did you actually land the helicopter here? And I was like, hey, I have my boss, he's signing some documents in the bank. And he's like, so you're not trying to rob it? And I was like, no, I'm not trying to rob it. I'm just landing here because he wants to go in the bank. So it turns out he is actually building an airplane in his garage. And so we started talking about that. And then they were saying that the reason that the cops were there is because everybody was reporting that a helicopter was at the bank robbing it. So that was probably the funniest story that I have for helicopters in general. But we ended up trying to work out a deal so that I could actually fly a helicopter around the cities with night vision goggles looking for meth labs. So it would have been kind of funny. Anyway, I appreciate all the support, guys, the likes and everything else too. I had a couple of really good people. No, this was Florida. It wasn't California. California has a lot of laws that are not very fun to deal with. You can't land anywhere you want. Well, I should say you can land wherever you want once. There's too many rules and stuff for California. But no, I was out in Florida. The owner of the helicopter was a real estate developer, and he wanted to go sign some documents and everything else. I did fly somebody that is a YouTuber that's maybe people recognize as from Smarter Every Day. I will say that he is not the nicest person that I thought, because I was really nervous and he was not that nice, but he was good. His wife's awesome. His wife's awesome. So, all right. Any other questions I can answer about something that you need for helicopters, or any kind of questions about industry as a whole, or I'm trying to come up with some ideas, but I'm also getting really dry in the throat and stuff too. I'll probably get off in about 15 more minutes, but yeah, you're welcome. Have a great night. Does anybody want me to start over? Because I am not doing that tonight. If you missed some of this stream and you want to know a little bit more about how to fly and get free lessons on helicopters, I can definitely start a stream for you specifically if you want to start from scratch. Ultimately, most of my stuff that's going to be scheduled. Otherwise, if I don't have somebody that's actually, hey, I want to go through it and just sit me down and do it, Bryce is going to be the one that's going to do everything. I do have a YouTube channel. It's called Helicopter Pilots Suck. So you'll get to find it. Yeah, Helicopter Pilots Suck is my website as well. Helicopterpilotsuck.com. But my YouTube channel is going to grow. I'm actually going to try to create some lessons that are actually going to be the lessons that I'm covering. The hardest thing is that I get really distracted. I'm not really good at doing like lessons in a way that is going to go in order. I took about 50 times just to record like the message that I sent out today saying, hey, I'm going live, and I was messing up the whole time. So I do have a YouTube channel though. Thanks for asking that kind of stuff. I try to make my goal is to make with the videos and everything is I make everything as simple as I possibly can. Ultimately, because it's kind of a complicated thing. Most people don't even understand helicopters at all. So my first lesson is always helicopters are like vacuums. They suck themselves up in the sky, and then we're sucking ourselves in the direction that we want to go. So It's fun. But I've had really good success with students. I've been teaching for a long time. So, any other questions? People are dropping off. There's people that are coming in. Zach, hi, thank you for coming by. Kind of missed a lesson. If you were trying to get a lesson, sorry, I got a helicopter, lesson that I was going through that kind of missed a little bit of the tail end. But you can follow and you can try to get all that stuff. If you guys can tell anybody who comes in here, or at least like share and tell people, click on there and say, hey, this guy legit, whatever, I don't know. Get some interest in other people. So, is there any other questions that I can answer? I'm going to probably get off here shortly. I got to get to the gym. Thank you for following, Derek. Did you get to see the whole thing I've done right? Oh, yes. Okay, so airplanes, they have to go forward. They have to have that forward motion in order to fly. A helicopter doesn't need that forward motion. So when a helicopter essentially has an engine failure, it's going to fall straight down, and basically the blades themselves are going to act like a parachute. Now, what happens is it actually slows the helicopter down quite significantly. The average fall for a helicopter when it's in an auto rotation is only 17 miles an hour. Have you ever get into an accident at 17 miles an hour? It actually doesn't do a lot of damage to you. So a helicopter can land anywhere. If I need to, I can land on the roof of somebody's house. I can fall straight down through the trees instead of going forward like that, like an airplane. So the damage can go right through the bottom and kind of take the brunt of everything. There are essentially crumple zones on helicopters. These skids essentially are designed so that they can take the brunt of a fall. The helicopter, as long as you have RPM, you can fall straight down. The fact is that helicopters and airplanes in general are safer than any car that you could ever drive. You're more likely to get into an accident statistically. I guarantee you've probably been on the highway even yesterday or today or whatever, and you've seen like 5 cars that are crashed somewhere along that route that you took. Helicopters are maintained extremely well most of the time. With the company I work for, it's really great maintenance and stuff. And there's such a huge amount of laws and regulations keeping the pilots essentially where they're supposed to be. They're way safer than airplanes because I can land anywhere I want. I don't have to look for a road. I don't have to look for a field. I can find the rooftop or a grass yard or even go into the trees and still walk away. I did have a friend of mine who was flying a little bit too low. He got hit by a California big gigantic bird, and it did do some damage to the helicopter, but they both walked away with no injuries at all. No injuries completely. They fell straight down and basically did what is called a hovering auto, and they both walked away. So I really do feel like they're way more safe than airplanes, because I'd rather go 17 miles down this way, 17 miles an hour this way, than 60 miles an hour that way into a tree. So I'm in St. Louis, downtown airport. It is I work for Heli Inc. I'm the training director over here. But for the most part, St. Louis has become my home. I've got some family here, things like that. I used to be in San Francisco. I really miss it. I wish I could get back out there. I do know a great school that's in San Francisco. It's called Specialized Helicopters or Specialized Aviation. That's a great place to kind of go. Any other questions for people? Thanks for coming, Anthony. Is there anything I can tell you about helicopters? Everybody's been kind of watching and stuff. I got about 15 more minutes in me before I'm really probably gonna get going. I gotta get kind of running in through. Nor anybody questions? Did I lose everybody that mattered to this kind of feed? No more questions? Nothing at all? I kind of want to try to see if somebody's out here. Oh, I can't even battle because it's locked. You're welcome. DM me, follow me, all that kind of stuff. I'll put as much lessons as I can. Again, if you want me to be completely like give you a specific lesson or something, I can cover those kind of things. I just enjoy it. It's kind of my fun kind of side project and everything. Nobody really kind of understands how and everything. Probably won't make too much money in it, but it's fun. But I'm glad you enjoyed it, Corey. Have a good night if you're leaving. Is there anybody on here that or anybody left? Because I got 3 people that are following. I don't want to leave until I answer everybody's question, because I really don't know when I'm going to go live specifically again. So, oh my goodness. 4 people. Derek, hi, welcome. Kind of missed a little bit of lesson, but is there any questions I can answer before I get off? I'm gonna probably have to come on and again and do some stuff. But I was teaching a lesson, Derek, on how helicopters work, and you missed a lot of it, but I can basically start touching more stuff on it. I'm probably going to get off though. This is actually an hour and a half, 2.5 hours. Hey James T, how's it going? Why does that look familiar? Viper joined, all that kind of stuff. I don't even know how to check statistics on this. Anybody know how to do feed? I haven't done feed before. This is the first time doing it, so I'm actually not even sure what I can do on here. Hey Kenny, I got about 15 more minutes. Is there anything I can talk to you about helicopters? And I'm basically just tired now, so I don't know. Thank you for the likes. Thank you, Mario, for liking everything. You've been helpful. I am getting to the point of I can understand now a little bit. Well, no, I've been working a lot longer than most of the streamers that get tired at the kind of stuff. I worked today. I'll just tell you a little bit about my day. So I teach advanced training in helicopters, basically for a large helicopter company. And ultimately, the training that I have is for people who are supposed to be pilots, and so they're supposed to have a basic knowledge of everything. And sometimes they don't. A lot of times they're pretty good, they're pretty proficient, but sometimes they don't. Today I had new hire, so they're new to the company, so I'm teaching them all the stuff that's different, paperwork-wise, regulation-wise. Trying to teach all that kind of stuff. So I've been actually up working here since 9 o'clock. And so I'm almost on my 12th hour. So I'm kind of running out of steam. Mario, is there anything? I'll be back next time. Very interesting. Looking forward to pull the trigger in the right place. Good. Yeah, it's a long day. It's been fun though, because I had a lot of success on, I think this was I don't really know what success is on here, to be honest, but this is what's been happening. We've been having some lessons, and so the lessons were going out, so success was there. There's some distractions, people that are trying to distract me from the lesson, but I think the lessons were pretty good today. How are you doing, James? How's your day? I'll ask you some questions instead of trying to do all that. Thank you, Mario, for that. I don't even know what that means, to be honest. I don't know how these points work. No, it's kind of like the game show. Whose line is it anyways? The points don't really matter, right? Is that kind of true? But hanging out with the kids. How many kids and what kind of kids? And what kind of kids is not? So I'm sure dogs can be considered kids or cats and stuff, but 2 boys. I have 3 boys. They are all idiots, so don't worry about that. Anyway, how are your boys? Are they better? And what are you up to with them? 5 and 7, perfect ages. Perfect ages. Those are the ages that you can let them do their own thing. I got a 20-year-old, a 19-year-old, and a 17-year-old. And they're all dumb. They're stupid. They're so dumb. Because I have been trying to teach them how to fly helicopters, and they don't have an interest. I'm like, I'm going to teach you how to fly for free, and they don't have an interest in that kind of stuff. So I don't understand. They just got to a point where they just used my money and thought, hey, it keeps going. It doesn't matter. I don't need to fly. But so what are you doing with your kids? You're playing with them, though. What's fun? It's a good Sunday, hopefully, to do that. So, Mario, thank you again for all the likes. I appreciate it. It is helpful to kind of get some people's attention and everything else too. You definitely boost that kind of stuff. School tomorrow. No, okay, so nothing's too old to start. I've taught pretty much everybody in every age group. I got a guy who's just trying to get his medical before he can actually start flying. As long as you can get a medical, you can actually learn how to fly helicopters. It does not require... here's the thing too. I recommend you learning it anyways because you can pass that on to the next generation. My kids won't take it, but you can pass it on hopefully to yours. So there's nothing too old to start. What kind of stuff do you play with your kids, James? Anything fun? I like some games. Probably will get on and stream potentially some video games at some point. Nintendo is great. I got the Switch 2 for my pilot house that is there. And oh no, you gotta be kidding me! I'm gonna have to come to your house. Oh, do you have Zelda? I like the original Zelda. Yeah. Oh man, I miss the old school Nintendo stuff because it's honestly it's a generational thing too, and people don't understand. The games were fun still. They're simple, but they're so much fun. And the adventure when you're back then, quite literally, you could not find your way anywhere without some kind of map, and the map was like huge. So, okay, how many hours is typically solo? It's about 60 hours to solo. That's the average. I have been able to get people at the minimum 40 hours or solo, sorry, 65, 60 hours to get a private pilot's license. Soloing, you have to have 20 hours. That's an SFAR regulation, so you can't, for Robinson. You can go solo earlier in a different helicopter. Okay, BEK, I want you to understand something that if you want to go solo quicker, the first thing you have to do is master the hover. If you're barely starting, start flying at night. Start flying at night because nighttime is the best time for you to actually learn how to hover. There's so much benefits to it. There's the ability to use a landing light to actually help you to fix everything. Once you know how to hover properly, you can start to learn the maneuvers. The soloing in an R22 and R44 is directed by the FAA regulations. You have to have at least 20 hours. But it's fun. I actually have a really good technique to teach somebody how to solo. I stand out in front of the helicopter and I just direct them up into the air and down to the ground and all that kind of stuff. Is there any other questions I can answer for you, BK? Because I am slowly drained. I can stretch this a little bit, but at some point I'm probably gonna have to use the bathroom. I'm an old man, I gotta go pee sometimes. So, oh man. Have you been solo ever or in an aircraft? No, you're welcome. You're welcome. I will tell you the solo, the first time you go solo. Oh, here's another thing. Military doesn't solo anybody anymore. So you're never going to get the solo experience in the military and stuff. Oh, ultralight. Okay. So you know what it's like to essentially to fly probably alone and all that kind of stuff. The solos, You're going to do well if you already have some experience with the airspace and air, basically the knowledge of the air itself in the flow and everything else. But it is, yeah, it does take a little bit. Typically, when you're soloing, before you get soloed, you're going to probably pass a stage check just to make sure that you're safe and you're not going to hurt yourself. So it takes time. It's up to you, up to the instructor and up to you. You got to be kind of not afraid of it. No, what happened to my camera? I just hit something. Do pilots that fly LifeWing have different qualifications or not? So like your life flights kind of stuff. So yes and no. You have to have a commercial license in order to be a commercial pilot and doing commercial stuff. When you're doing LifeWing, or if you're doing like a life flight type flying, it's under a 135 regulation. So the 135 regulation is basically following a higher standard than just like Part 91 and things. There's not any difference in qualifications, except that typically those need to have an instrument rating. The instrument rating is generally speaking because it's anything for 135 is kind of a insurance thing. So the insurance kind of dictates what are the qualifications and necessary things for pilots to actually get a job. So 135 usually has to have an instrument rating in order to do life flight and stuff like that. Does that answer your question, Mario? You can just have a commercial and instrument. That's pretty much it. I flew basically for almost 6 years doing medical flying. So have a good night. Good chat. And thanks for coming by. And hopefully, hopefully you can check and all that kind of stuff. I'm trying to rapidly beat time, or beat father time, and try to get all of my knowledge out there into the ether so that the whole world can hopefully benefit from something before I go. Because nobody knows how long they have, but father time is always on me. I am not a young person anymore. So, but I'll be trying to get some more stuff out and post as much as I can. I got to work with Bryce more, so I'm probably going to get on. If you guys are interested, I'll kind of, if you turn on notifications, maybe, and everything too. I was in the Army National Guard, so I was a warrant officer. From the standpoint of a warrant officer, it's much easier to be a pilot because you don't have to have a degree. And then it's kind of better in some ways because you don't actually have to deal with the business side of things, which is usually what officers, excuse me, please, business side of things, because officers essentially, they do all the paperwork and all that crap, and they're desk jockeys at some point. Pilots, for the warrant officer side, man, you got so much. You end up getting away from PT and your specialized thing. You get saluted, and so it was good as a warrant. Were you in the military, Mario? Thank you for the follow, James, too, if you're still there. No, okay. What's your background? Tell me about you. You've been probably, how long did you start? I don't know, when did you start listening in? I wasn't really paying attention to all the feeds because I was trying to, this and that, and all that kind of stuff. So, oh man, it's been a long day. So, just found you tonight, about an hour. Okay. So if you've been around TikTok for a while, how's my presentation? Is it pretty good or is it kind of crappy? I don't know anything about TikTok. It's not one thing I was trying to get on, but good. Awesome. Thanks. I definitely always am open to feedback and stuff. I do think I need to get a sign that says free lessons up here so people can kind of see what's going on. Yeah, That would probably help. I gotta get something that would, you know. Free lessons. World needs pilots. I don't know. Just so my handwriting sucks, so don't. It's just I can't get rid of that. It's just bad. Things like that. But good to meet you, Jexus Made. I'm almost done. I'm almost off. I've been on for 2.5, almost 3 hours. Jeez. You missed most of the lesson, Mario, by the way. Like, quite literally. You need... Oh, no, I can't do an old school chalkboard. I'd get, like, chalk everywhere, dust everything, and it's a whiteboard. That's old. Are you kidding me? That's about it. Oh, it would show up better. Yeah, okay. Yeah, chalkboard. You know, if I have 2 lights, maybe it would kind of benefit. I don't know. The only thing is I'm in an office space, so I'm kind of like in kind of close quarters. My office is kind of tiny. I'm actually kind of hot in here. So, yeah, I don't know. But that is a good suggestion. The only thing is, like, chalk is really kind of dusty and has a lot of issues with that kind of stuff. I actually wanted to try to do where I can show the bottom of my screen and basically have it so that you can see me handwriting stuff down with a piece of paper. But I don't know how to do that. I haven't figured all this stuff out. Yeah, thanks for the like, Kevir. I'm a helicopter pilot, just trying to chat about helicopter stuff right now. You missed a whole bunch of lessons and stuff, unless you've been here for a bit. I've been teaching for 20 years, so all my knowledge. There is a lot in this industry I think needs to be changed. One of them is that people should be learning how to fly or learning the ground stuff without having to go in and pay for it. Because you can learn anything on YouTube now and people just don't realize it. So, 9,000. How many likes did you put in there? I don't even know. Like, that's crazy. 9,000. Mario, I think you got everything. 9,000 is actually better than some of the hot women that I've seen on TikTok and how they're doing kind of stuff. Like, it's kind of cool. But any other suggestions, Mario, is about the chalkboard? And here's the biggest thing. I don't hear myself, but how's the mic pick up everything? Because I have this DJI mic kind of thing, and it seems okay. Good. This is actually maybe the 4th time I've used it, but I never used it on a stream, so I don't have a clue. I don't even know. I don't know anything what I'm doing, honestly. If I got on here tomorrow, it's going to still stay the same. I'm in Missouri, specifically in St. Louis, and so I'm kind of in Illinois and Missouri kind of thing. Been here for about, 7 years. I was in California before. I actually got stuck in Missouri. So I was supposed to go back and forth to California. I was planning on going back and forth to California. And then COVID hit. And COVID stopped everything in flying. And I couldn't go anywhere to California. So I got stuck in Missouri. But I have family here, so it's good. Commercial pilot, multi-IFR. Been interested in probably moving road, okay? But I think, right. You're going to have a lot of easy time with a lot of the knowledge and stuff. What do you want to know about the transition stuff? It's kind of proficiency based. There are some minimum hours that are required. You can Google it for the transition and stuff. Minimum hours, I think, are for commercial mostly because of if you're doing a Robinson, it's going to have different time. So you're going to have, you have to get to the number of hours in order to be in kind of thing. It's not a bad transition. I mean, you're going to have an easier transition than somebody starting off. I will say that you're the bigger risk, though. We don't go forward if the engine fails. We want to go aft. So, oh, you asked before. That's right. Did I send you a message about it? Maybe you're the guy who I sent a message about the transition and stuff. They're going to validate my instrument rating. Oh, so it's not. You still have to have a for getting an instrument rating in helicopters and stuff. You still have to have. There's some training that's involved because it's emergency training, and then you still have to have a check rides because you still have to be able to fly the helicopter. It's not any different with the. It's not really any different for the procedures. The procedures are all the same. You could do all the procedures all day long in a simulator and still walk away with an instrument rating kind of stuff, but you just have to. You just have to be able to do the actual control of the helicopters, and it's a little different with the cyclic. So, yeah, okay, good. Well, is there any other question I can ask about that as far as that goes? I will tell you, to be honest, I've been working professional for a while, and I kind of stopped focusing my attention too much on the low end of training, like the guys who are in the newer guys and stuff. I've been teaching the big guys. Like I've been a check airman for 135 operation for a long time, so yeah. But you're gonna have an easy time if you're really trying to get into it and stuff. You're gonna find it a little harder to fly a helicopter. Okay, so the scholarships are something I'm actually trying to build a lot more of because we're running out of pilots. There's a shortage. We need pilots big time. There's scholarships that are out there. There's a lot more scholarships for women in general because they're trying to get women in aviation more. But there's scholarships that are out there. There's not a lot of paid training in general in aviation. The hardest thing is I can give you all the knowledge. I can teach everything in aviation. I can do it for you for free so you don't have to pay for that kind of stuff. But the actual experience level, the actual experience is harder to come by because it costs a lot for a helicopter, and it costs a lot even from an airplane standpoint. So there's a lot of expense that are in there. We actually have people who are coming in to our company, and it costs us about $10,000 to train a pilot that's already been a pilot for years how to do our job, or how to do the job properly, I should say. So it's hard to do. You can, it's hard. It's an investment. That's all I can say. It's a worthwhile investment too. It's fun. Once you get to take passengers around everything, it's pretty good. I want a commercial license, test flight, before 400 AM an hour. Oh yeah, okay. All right, what type of aircraft are you flying? 400 an hour. Because 400 out is cheap. Test flight, 400 an hour. Was that 400 an hour for fuel on board, instructor, all that kind of stuff? This helicopter is roughly about $800 an hour without instructor and without fuel and stuff. 400 actually is pretty cheap. It is, you have to kind of consider it as an investment. If you were to go to be a doctor or lawyer, or you were to try to do a veterinarian or something, everything is it's a professional field. It will pay off though, I guarantee it will pay off. Right now the average pay for a helicopter pilot is about $92,000 for average, and then it goes up pretty good. I'm shooting at about $200K for this year. So the medical side can pay really well. There's some that have like $50,000 bonuses tied to them. There's a lot of things. Once you get hours are hours. So here's the thing too: pay when you can. Take as many, if it takes you a long time or it takes you less, it's just hours are hours. They don't expire. So that little test flight doesn't expire. But it's helpful if you can fly more often because then it's cheaper. So you're welcome for the information. Is there anything else I can answer for you, MC Buddha? I'm about to get off because my throat is dying. 3 hours. Oh, man. You're welcome. You're very welcome. I am honestly just here to try to answer as many questions, consult people who are looking for this kind of stuff, and then teach free lessons on how helicopters are. I'll teach the entire helicopter aerodynamic book if I had the right kind of person wanting to learn that kind of stuff. I just love aviation. It's so much fun. So, is there anybody in the chat that has a question that has been sitting there not asking the question or not having anything? I don't know. I'm almost done. I think I'm pretty close, but I don't know if I'm getting on Wednesday or Thursday. I don't know when the next time I'm gotta get on. I do have a, I don't even know. I'm not even sure. I got to figure out when Bryce is available because it's going to be dictated by Bryce because he's my student really I'm trying to teach. Because he's actually committed to trying to be a pilot. But if anybody else has that, I can try to make a change. Anybody? All right. Well, I appreciate everything, Mario. I'm at 10,000. I may screenshot that and see if I can actually do it. Well, I appreciate everything, Mario. I'm at 10,000. I may screenshot that and see if I can actually do it. I'm going to bed since nobody else is asking any questions. Maybe you just feel bad that I'm still trying to be the dancing monkey and everything else too. I know how to juggle. I'm not going to juggle, but I do know how to juggle. So, but I appreciate everybody that came by, anybody who stuck through. Just, whatever I can do to help, just DM me any other questions that you have. Definitely Mario, you're the MVP, I guess, because you've created a huge amount of likes. You got 11K. I don't know how to check it, so, but I appreciate that. Have a good night, everybody. Sleep well, fly safe. That means you can fly forever if you ever get into a thing. Flying safe is the most important thing. And I'm going to always end my nights by saying and suggesting that. So have a good one. Thanks again. Toodles, I guess.